Call to order the meeting of the Finance Committee for February 27, 2025. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for being here, thank the public for watching. A couple housekeeping things. First of all, if you can shut your ringer off on your phone, that'd be great. Should be a switch on the side, assuming you have an Apple. I don't know what you have. The other thing is this meeting's being shown live on local broadcast SMAC and recorded for later internet viewing. And I'm going to make a quick announcement for anyone who's interested. The DLS is having a webinar on March 25th. I've been told is at 2 o'clock. You'd have to confirm that at the DLS website. I just wanted to mention that. And right now I'm looking for a motion to open the public hearing.
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, we have Elliot. Oh, I'm trying to clarify. Who made the motion on that?
I did.
Dave. Carolyn's a second on that. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Okay. Yes, Jonna.
I just want to ask, so it's clear, which takes precedence? Someone seconding a motion or your gavel?
A gavel.
So, okay.
Thank
That's
you.
what I want to know.
Okay, the public hearing is open. First on here, we have Article 35, Community Preservation Committee FY26 Budget Report. Would you like to present that?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Barry Kassler, the Program Administrator for the Community Preservation Committee. Can everyone hear?
Yes, and thank you for checking on that, everyone. Make sure you're speaking loudly, clearly, and the green light is on your mic so that everyone at home can hear and everyone in the room. Thank you very much. Please continue.
Okay, I'll try to project. This is our annual budget, which we do every year, working with the Finance Director. Michael Barrett, who is our Treasurer, couldn't be here tonight, but I'm very familiar with everything that's in it. What we do is we start with the anticipated revenue for the year, and we take 10% of that and assign it to each of the 3 reserve accounts: community housing, historic resources, and open space. We set aside up to 5% for administrative expenses, and the balance goes into the budgeted reserve, in other words, the undesignated fund. We also have long-term debt service. This year's debt service, which includes principal and interest on previously bonded projects, is $330,038. And the handout is a breakdown showing the estimated revenue, both local and state, and how the budget breaks down in terms of each individual bond and each individual proposed project. The 2 projects that we're recommending this year are included, obviously, because you want to be able to fund them if they are approved.
Okay. Are you done with your presentation, or do you have something to add, Biz?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to notify Mr. Kessler that the backup that he was speaking to the budget article is in the warrant backup, but not in the article backup, because I don't think you have that in this warrant.
Okay.
It's not in the warrant, but I did send it
Yes,
as
and that's
additional
been
information.
distributed to the Finance
Correct.
Committee. Thank you, though. Do we have any questions from the committee on Article 35, Community Preservation Committee FY26 Budget/Report? Joel.
One quick question. What do you have for cash on hand right now? I think I understand your report, but I want to confirm it.
We expect the total to be $9.7 million. A lot of that is already spoken for in terms of projects that have been approved and the funds have not been expended yet, and in terms of projects that are bonded, and the bonding hasn't come due yet.
Okay, you haven't bonded anything in a while, have you?
That's correct.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Joel. Do we have any other questions from the committee? Article 35, Community Preservation Committee FY26 Budget Report. Arnie, please speak into the microphone, make sure the light's green.
Sorry about that. Thank you for being here. What page is the, on the,
It's article number 35.
I was looking
It
at
has page 24.
24.
Yes, they're not part of the standard budget book, it's in the warrant. They're not a budgeted, general fund budgeted and/or enterprise. So if you look at the town meeting warrant that was given out tonight, you'll find that on page 24.
Could you please just use the mic when you speak? That way everyone at home can hear, because otherwise they're wondering what we're talking about here. But thank you.
Okay, do you want me to repeat that, or are we good?
In the future, I'm just
Okay,
thinking. Thank you.
My apologies.
No further questions? Oh, okay. Dave, do you have a question?
Thank you, Vaughn. Thank you. Through you to Mr. Kessler, thank you for bringing the information. Thank you for covering. You do that very well. You've been doing it for a long time, so appreciate it. Can you explain of the money? So the new money you're getting for this fiscal year coming up is the 1.157. That's the number, right? How much of that is the state contribution?
State contribution, again, these are estimates because it hasn't happened yet, but we're estimating the state contribution of $150,000 and the local contribution at $1,007,640.
640. All right, so you're at about 10%, getting from the state's putting in about 10% of your total?
Actually, close to 15.
15, so it's not added to the 1.157, it's part of the 1.157, the state contribution. All right. All right, so in this, the bottom line, it's the FY 2026 budgeted annual reserve. Is that the general, it used to be called like a general bucket where it's not put into one of the historical or open space or housing, it's the general bucket? Is that what that last line up?
It will end up in the undesignated fund.
So a reserve becomes that, whatever, that's,
The undesignated fund is not reserved for any particular CPA purpose. It can be used for any CPA.
right, all right. So for all intents and purposes, that becomes the general bucket that's waiting to be appropriated for whatever? Yes. Okay. And for this coming year, are you staying with the same cash position where all your projects will be cash, or do you anticipate a borrowing? I haven't had a chance to, we just literally tonight got the sources of revenue for what's coming, okay? So bear with me a little bit. But do you anticipate borrowing with any of the articles that you have?
No, we have 2 articles that we have recommended, and they are both cash.
They're both cash. Thank you. I'm good.
Joel, you have a question?
Yeah, this is a short question. I'm looking at your list of projects. You have 3 items for the high school tennis courts and the soccer field, and you have 1 item for the Pearl Street Pocket Park. I thought those were all complete.
That's what you're looking at. They were bonded. So
Right.
they were bonded over the course of a number of years.
Right.
So that is this year's payment that is coming due.
Oh, that's the payment on the bond?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yep.
That explains it.
Okay, thank you for that, Joel. Any other questions from the committee? Article 35, Community Preservation Committee, FY26 Budget Report. Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public on Article 35, Community Preservation Committee FY26 Budget Report? All right. Hearing none, we move to the next item on here, which is item 5 on the agenda, Article 36, Glen Echo Park Pavilion and Benches Project, $180,000. Do we have a presenter for this?
We do.
Good evening. I'm Eric Coleman, Precinct 5 Town Meeting Member and Chair of the Glen Echo Development and Recreation Committee. And I prepared a PowerPoint, which we can't do, but I don't know if you have this in your packet.
The information's been distributed to the Finance
Okay.
Committee. If you have paper copies you want to hand to the public, you can feel
I
free to do
just
that.
have my own. What you see here in the front is the architect's plan. Are you looking at that? Can you see that? No, not my copy, but your copies. I can describe it anyway. We've got the lake, and the pavilion was kind of in the middle in his plan, and he had benches and essentially the things that we're talking about here. Some of his plans we haven't done yet. And that's not in what we're asking for here. Then we're asking for a shade pavilion, and that is going to be, well, you can't see it, well, my copy of it anyway. There's the circle in the Glen Echo Park. There's a couple handicap spots, and there'll be a paved pathway going to the pavilion, which is 30, well, the pad is 30 by 50, and the pavilion itself is 44 by 24. There'll be picnic tables on one side, and the other side is going to be empty for whatever purposes people want to use it for. Next page probably is irrelevant for you. It shows the conservation area near the water, and there's a rectangular type shape goes through part of the pavilion and goes further back for active recreation. Next paper I've got here is the location of the proposed additions. Shows a little pink drawing of the pavilion behind the handicap parking, and then benches towards the water, the lake, and two benches on one side, and then on the other side of the path going down to the water, to the lake, there's another bench, and then the fourth bench will be kind of like an overlook. You'd have to go along the path, the trail to the right side, and it's a beautiful area. Not that everything else isn't beautiful, but it's a nice overlook of the lake. Next, hopefully you can see the shade pavilion that is in Beverly. So we're looking for the same type of pavilion. This is a steel pavilion. That's good because it's supposed to last a long time, and we want that. Last item on this PowerPoint is a bench similar to the ones at the Harbor Walk and JFK Presidential Library. Very simple, and I think it's going to be nice in that area. The last item on that is the cost estimates, which I believe you have, totaling $180,000. How else can I help?
Well, thank you very much for that.
Welcome.
Do we have any questions from the committee? Article 36, Glen Echo Park Pavilion and Benches Project, $180,000. Arnie?
Quick question. question on the pavilion.
Please use the microphone, make sure the light's
Hi.
green.
Quick question on the pavilion. What sort of maintenance is going to be required to prevent it from rusting?
I couldn't understand you, I'm sorry.
On the,
Maintenance, you're asking?
yeah, what is the maintenance to prevent it from rusting?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
Is there a coating on it, such as a,
All right, so the answer is yes, there's a coating on it.
okay, is,
Do you want? Here.
the only reason I'm asking that is, I just want to know what sort of extra cost we're going to have to keep that maintained so that, you said it's steel, so steel rusts.
Right, but it doesn't burn, which is why we did this instead of wood, because there were concerns about a wooden one being burned. So, I mean, this is anodized steel, and it's treated so that many others have been installed, and as far as I know, they've held up very well. So.
Okay, I just wanted to ask whether if it's painted, it's just going to fall off. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Arnie. Lisa, you have a question on this? Just make sure the light's green.
It is. It's just going dead.
Maybe the mic's not working then.
Hi. Yeah. Hi. How many parking spaces are in this area?
In the area, we've got,
In the
I think there's, 40 in the whole thing? Not all paved, but on the road coming down, there's parking on the, like an overflow parking on the left side, and then there's that circle.
This is in a wider open area, correct? You're looking for shade
Yes.
in it. So I've been there. It is beautiful, but isn't there a lot of paths with shade in there that we can put with the trees cover? I'm just thinking this is pretty expensive.
Excuse me, this is for when there are activities here, if people want to be at a picnic table or Girl Scouts have meetings, so there'll be a covered place to have your picnic tables, really. There is a lot of shade on the paths, but this is for people who will be at the tables.
And it also keeps you out of the rain.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, thank you for that. Lisa, Chet, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your presentation. My question is, we got an email today about the pavilion. We'll run around $45,000, and it could go up to 50 or 55 if built on site. It's built on site. Is that a different pavilion, or is it the same pavilion? It's still going to be metal. I don't quite understand.
It comes unassembled, so one price is for what the raw materials are, and then the other price is to assemble it.
Okay, so, and then the concrete's going to drop down to 25,000 instead of 26? According to did the price of the concrete drop down? I mean, the overall
Let me
prices are going to be 180,000.
We were just, that was the last estimate we got. It was a little lower, correct?
That's what I'm
The
asking.
25?
But according to the email, yes, the amendment to the Article 20. So but the cost is still going to be $180,000, no matter, right? It's not going to be less or more.
I expect it to be less.
I hope so.
It's gonna be less.
'Cause there's built-in contingency, so we hope we don't use it all up, but.
Okay. No, I'm just curious
Prices go up.
because, what you presented and what we got as amendment to the article, prices went down and some of the prices went up. It doesn't say here about the construction, just for the materials. It just says, pavilion 44 by 24, 42,000. And then you added the 50 to 55 for assembling it. That wasn't on the original article. That's my question. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you're very welcome, Chet. Thank you for the question. Elliot, did you have a question on this?
Not a question, perhaps, but I took a trip down there to Glen Echo, and I must say it looks very, very nice. It was well thought out. And to whoever, and all of those who were involved, congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Elliot. Any other questions from the committee on Article 36, Glen Echo Park Pavilion and Benches Project, $180,000? Dave?
Yeah, thank you, Vaughn, through you. I'm also happy to see a pavilion going in. I think it goes back to the original intention. I'm finding myself kind of going back in time with town meeting. I've seen a lot of meetings going back to when a lot of these plans were originally talked about, and it was just an abstract idea. And it was also good to see that you're not going into any kind of loud sporting kind of venues on site, which was also good to hear. So I just want to also, to the previous speaker who mentioned about the additional information, it is very confusing. I couldn't make heads or tails of it either. I'm just wondering, because we've always had a policy on the Finance Committee to say, if you're going to bring an article to us to be vetted by the Finance Committee, that we get at least 48 hours to digest this information. I literally got this while I was in the middle of work, and we go through it. It's a very hectic thing I have at the end of the month, and to have it received, so it's very confusing, and I'm like, well, how are we supposed to use this to vet what you're trying to do? So I guess what I'm asking is, can we not use this in the book, but maybe use it on the virtual table, or print it out on the table for town meeting reps who walk in? But if we're not vetting it, it's hard for us to say, oh yeah, because it's in the book, that everybody assumes that Finance Committee had a good chance to vet that information. So is there a major impact of the cost difference between what came in this morning and what we already had for material that showed the 170,000 that's on this, 180,000 that's on this estimated cost?
These are two different estimates. I wanted some backup for, for what was on the budget sheet. So this is from Derek Del Prete, I guess, who had done the Cape and Reynolds structure, and he was kind enough to do this within a day. He was able to get this out. I sent him the engineering drawing of what we were going to do, and he came up with this.
Yeah, I guess what I'm wondering, can you show us the impact of that email information, that new information of how it changes the 180,000 rounded up number? Does it change that number at all? And if so, how much?
No, it does not.
It doesn't change it. It just shows like supporting information to what is in the number? That's what it is? It just supports the number?
Mr. Lurie, I'm going to interrupt here because I think it's a little, I'm kind of clarify this a little bit. We got the information a while back. The information was sent out. You have a file in your email. It's called A36. And that was emailed out on February 19th. And in that, on the last page of that, there's pricing on there for $43,500 for the pavilion. It's the last page of A36. And I think the removal of concrete is $15,000, and then the concrete is $26,250 on that last page of the file A36 distributed to the Finance Committee on February 19th. Mr. Coleman sent an email today with another quote that he had received, and it says here, I'm going to read it, prefabricated pavilion would run about $45,000. I appreciate his attempt at solidifying some of the numbers that match up with the information. The original document did say $43,500. The email that came out today was $45,000. We're pretty close to the numbers here. And then it says the concrete slab under the pavilion will run about $25,000 all in. The original file, A36, the last page, had the concrete at $26,250. So I think that's where the confusion is. The information was in a previous file, and I think, to Mr. Coleman's credit, he was just trying to provide proof of that, I guess is probably the best way to put it.
Thank you.
A better explanation. I honestly appreciate the backup to the original documents. It's good we got, I don't know if it's a quote, but it's an email. And I think that's where the confusion is. There's been several pieces of information that have been put out on this. The original was on I think on the 19th. There was some other information that was put out yesterday, the day before, which is the same pictures that are in the original file, A36, from February 19th, except they're prettier, I guess, is probably a nice way to put it.
Well,
They look better.
so it answers the question.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to answer the question
It answers the
before we have it.
question that the 180,000 that's in the warrant is a solid number that there's no material difference between where we were and where we are. So we don't really absolutely have to have that email as part of any kind of documentation for
Okay.
town meeting, right?
No? You don't?
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for that, Dave. Any other questions from the committee on Article 36, Glen Echo Park Pavilion and Benches Project, $180,000? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public? Cynthia, please identify yourself for the record.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. Why wasn't the paperwork available to the public?
Are you asking me? Or
Well,
the petitioner?
they seem to be looking at pictures that I don't have access to.
We could get copies of the president. Eric, do you have an extra copy you could give to Cynthia?
For just about anyone, even if folks have a PowerPoint presentation, because of my visual handicap, I cannot see or read anything on these screens, or the ones at town meeting, in fact. So I really need to have the paperwork. The other thing is the pavilion accessible? If I were in a wheelchair, could I get onto the pavilion?
Excellent question. The current area where the picnic tables are, I found out from the Collins report, are not handicapped accessible because it's too steep. Doesn't mean that somebody with a wheelchair can't get up there. But when we considered this plan, we're going to raise the area where the pavilion is so that the slope is not too steep, and they will be able to access it from a wheelchair. And there's going to be the table that we're adding. There are 3 tables currently in that area. They're going to be reused, taken out and put back in, and there's going to be an additional table that will be wheelchair accessible. Does that answer your question?
Yes. The report doesn't require parks and playgrounds to be universally accessible, just a portion, so that if a family comes to a park or a playground and 1 or 2 of the members have a mobility issue, that everyone can enjoy in the park. They don't have to be able to enjoy 100% of it, but enough of a portion so that the person with the mobility issue doesn't have to sit on the sidelines. And I appreciate any effort made to that. I'm certainly not opposed to improvements at Glen Echo. And in fact, someone told me that Sunday he was walking a dog and there were 40 ice fishermen out on the lake. The town spent a great deal of money to purchase this land as open space. Open space is nice, but we want space that's utilized for whatever purpose. And those of us who have a disability appreciate any efforts, thank you, any efforts to make whatever part of the park. Obviously, I'm not going to be out there ice fishing. But whatever we can do to make a portion of any park or playground accessible so that the whole family can enjoy a Sunday or a Saturday or whatever free time they have. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Cynthia. Any other questions, comments from the public on Article 36, Glen Echo
Well,
Park Pavilion?
I can add,
and-
am I still on here? Is this on?
Yeah, but I'm still calling for
The-
questions
the
and comments from
committee-
the public.
The Glen Echo Committee wants to make this accessible to as many people as possible. So the handicap accessibility is a primary concern of ours.
All right, thank you for that. Do we have any other questions or comments from the public? Article 36, Glen Echo Park Pavilion and Benches Project, $180,000. Dave, do you have another question on this?
I forgot to ask another question. It came to mind when I heard the previous speaker. The Is it a first come, first serve? Like if somebody said, I want to do like a birthday party at the pavilion, you know, and they want to make sure that if it's raining in the forecast, they want to have a shelter. Is it a first come, first serve? How do people utilize it? Is it, you know, can you tell how people go about that?
Well, I would think the Recreation Department could make a schedule or have a calendar that people can make reservations for it, but there was nothing that the committee discussed on that. And it's a good thought.
That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dave. Any other questions, comments from the public? Article 36, Glen Echo Park Pavilion and Benches Project, $180,000. Hearing none, go to the next item on the agenda, Article 37.
I can just say one more thing. I'm on a couple committees, and I know how much time it takes, so I just want to thank you people for all the time you put in doing this.
Well, thank you very much.
I second that.
Article 37, Stoughton Depot Rehab Transfer of Funds for Previous Borrowing, $310,867.88. Do we have a presenter for this?
Okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead with this one. This is an article, we ended up with a negative balance on one of our accounts for the railroad depot, and what had happened was I believe it was in 2023 at town meeting, we budgeted enough funds to pay off what's called a bond anticipation note. At that time, no bond had been issued, even though this was a bonded project. And they couldn't issue the bond because they didn't know exactly what they were going to use it for. They didn't know exactly what category of use would be used at the railroad depot. So the idea was, well, let's just pay it off instead of bonding it. So we included it in the budget. At the time, we also had a separate article that would have allocated the funds to make that payment. We were told we didn't need both. We probably, in hindsight, we probably should have had both. We ended up pulling the duplicate article. So now we're back here basically to correct that error and bring the balance from a negative 300,000+ back to zero. The CPA fund has two main accounts. One's an operating account and one's a capital account. And the money got paid out of the account as a deficit. It has to be transferred from one to the other in order to bring that back to zero. So the money is not coming from outside the CPA fund. It's not going to, excuse me, it's not going outside of the CPA fund. It's a transfer within the CPA fund.
All right, thank you for that. Any questions from the committee on Article 37? Lisa?
Okay. Hi, this is probably for the finance director. Can you just help me understand? I understand town meeting borrowed or authorized the borrowing, and I understand what a ban is. A ban is not actually taking out the bond. Is that a correct statement? Let's start there for a minute.
Yeah, correct. It's a note to tide you over until you can issue a bond.
Okay, so it is actually pulling some type of debt. It is an actual debt.
Right.
So
Short term.
Say that again?
Short term, as opposed to long term, which a
Got it.
bond would be.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So I understand that's a ban, and then at some point the project wasn't done. I get that part. So now you want to pay that off. Was it just that it was paid off out of the wrong checkbook, so to speak, out of year two?
I don't want to say there was, well, let me refer that question to our finance
Okay.
director.
Mr. Chairman, to members of the Finance Committee, a ban, when we borrow, we authorize borrowing, let's say, for $350,000 to do this project. We go out and we do temporary borrowing, which is a ban. And when we're done with a ban, and it's multiple accounts, let's say we borrow $10 million, and part of it was the 320. When we do the ban, there's temporary borrowing. We pay interest only on the temporary borrowing, and when we go to bond is when the full borrowing comes into play. In 2023, what the CPC did, I don't think they got the proper guidance. They decided to pay down the ban, which is just paying back the ban, but there was no borrowing. which would have completed the project and put the borrowing funds to pay for the project. So when I was here, first got here last year, I discussed the issue with the CPC, and we recognized the problem, so we're correcting that problem. So their authorized unissued balance is going to be going away. They're not going to have any other bans or borrowing on this particular project. It's now become a cash project.
I'm just confused at where was the doubling part? There's a ban and then there's a full bond. They never took out the full bond. Is that a correct statement?
Yes.
Okay, so then they were just paying down the ban. I'm just confused on what's the double part.
There is no double.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought I heard you say something was doubled.
You good, Lisa? All right, thank you very much. Elliot, you have a question?
Yes, specifically on the railroad station, do you have an abstract or a plan to what you're going to be doing with, on the railroad station?
That's up to the town to present to town meeting, or to whoever's going to make that decision.
We don't have one as of yet.
That's not what this article is. This article is just a transfer to correct an accounting error, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Carolyn, you have a question on this, Article 37?
Yes, do you? Oh, real loud. Mine works. All right, do you, Mr. Chair, what is the fund that it's being transferred from, and what is the account that it's being transferred to?
Like most funds within the town, the CPC has an operating account, and then they also have a capital project account. The money is coming out of the CPC operating account and being transferred to their capital account, which will relieve the deficit.
Thank you.
Dave, you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Vaughn, through you. So this would be for a question for the CPC. So if I understand, the 9,000 and then the other 21,000 was taken out, right? It was actually used in some way. Could you explain what that was spent on?
The total cost of the project was $321,000, which was expended. And out of that, there was a premium, a band premium of roughly the $9,000 that was used to offset the cost between the $21,000 that we took off the band and the bond premium of $9,000. So that's $30,000. Add $30,000 to the $310,000. So that gives us $340,000 was spent on that project, which goes back a number of years.
Maybe I asked the question wrong, so I'll try to rephrase it. If there's a cost to the original article, a cost of $21,000 and another $9,000, or either or both, what of those monies were spent on the railroad depot?
That was revenue that came in, and all of that funding was spent towards the initial renovations, inspections of the railroad depot, so we could move forward on this very vital community center, railroad depot, community center that we're working on.
That's exactly what I meant. Like, what was the thing that was done with that money?
They
What is that thing?
They used it for design, to have consultants come in to look to see what we needed to do. I believe some of the windows initially were reviewed to be replaced. There's a lot of things that went into this project exactly. I could get you a list.
No, I don't need a breakdown. I just needed to understand if it was put in to the railroad depot. It's just
Absolutely.
to hear you say that it was used on design,
Yes.
inspections.
Correct.
That answers the question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Dave. Any other questions from the committee on Article 37? Stoughton Depot Rehab Transfer of Funds for Previous Borrowing. Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public on Article 37? Stoughton Depot Rehab Transfer of Funds for Previous Borrowing, $310,860. $7.88. Hearing none, we'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is Article 38, closeouts of prior appropriations for CPC.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the things that we've been doing lately is going through whatever projects are out there that have been completed and closing them out through town meeting. So what this does is gives town meeting a chance to see that the project is finished, to see what the final remaining balance is, and once the town votes on that at town meeting, those funds are freed up to be used for other CPA projects. So this year, we have a total of $118,000 plus that will be freed up. That's in the motion. The original, the article was updated after some money was spent between then and
Well,
now.
thank you very much for that. Questions from the committee, Article 38, closeouts of prior appropriations for the CPC. Joel?
Yeah, I read the list and I remember pretty much all of them except the first one, which is rehab fire station number 1. I know there was a rehab done in about, I want to say 2013, 2014, but I don't think that was your money. What is that? What was this money for?
No, this was funding under historical preservation for upgrades to the fire station, and we noticed that there hasn't been any activity on that account for at least a couple of years.
There was a good reason for it, so.
I'm sorry, say that again?
There was a good reason for that,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, so we went back to the town and said, can we close this out?
Okay, all right.
And they said, yeah, we're done.
I just don't, I mean, I was part of an ad hoc building committee that provided community oversights for some of the renovations back in, I want to say 14, maybe 15, and I just don't remember already getting any money from the CPA, so this must have been something different. But thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Joel. Any other questions from the committee on Article 38? Dave?
Thank you, Vaughn, through you. I do see return to a specific designation, and 2 of them have undesignated.
Yes.
So Glen Echo Rec, is that, what is rec?
Recreation.
Recreation.
Recreational facilities, couldn't fit it all on the line.
Okay, no, I'm good, yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you for that. And the other one is the tee boxes at Cedar Hill. So where were they pulled from originally? Did they come out of undesignated and you are forced to put it back where you found it? Is that
Exactly, that's the intent, to take the money that's being freed up and put it back to its source account. That's exactly
And it
correct.
happened to be sourced out of that account, yeah. And that's, yeah, that's pretty much what I had for a question. Thank you.
Any other questions from the committee on Article 38? Closeouts of prior appropriations CPC? Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public on Article 38, closeouts of prior appropriations for CPC? Hearing none. Thank you very much for the presentations tonight. Have a wonderful evening. We will be moving on to the next portion of the agenda, which is Section 8, Item 8, Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget for FY26. Okay, this consists of engineering, economic development, building and code enforcement, Board of Health, Planning Department, Moderator, and Finance Committee. This is all part of this Article 14, Section 8. Why don't we go with economic development first? Page is it on?
Thank you for letting me go first. I'm Pam McCarthy, the Economic Development Director.
We're going to get the page number here real quick, though.
I'm not sure what page it's on.
Page 32 in the budget.
Oh, okay. All right. So my budget is very straightforward. The expenses only increased by a total of $535 from the previous year. 100 of it was under membership fees, and $435 was under dues and subscriptions, which was basically the Discover Stoughton Mass app that I put together that has a business directory on it. That is what increased under that category. So those were the two increases other than salary. Did you have questions on those two increases?
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions or comments from the committee? On Article 14, Economic Development portion of the budget, is on page 32.
I just have a
Carolyn?
question. Hi, through you. Could you just repeat for me where exactly I see an increase on the salary part, but what exactly on the expenses was the increase?
The membership fee category went up from $1,100 to $1,200, and the dues and subscriptions went up $435. That's for the Discover Stoughton app. So that's right now at $9,117.
Okay. And the consultant fees, what are the consultants?
So I have the consultant line item in there for multiple reasons. I have some new responsibilities. I'm also the grant manager for the town side of government, and a lot of the times you'll be required to do some type of a match in order to be competitive with a grant application. For example, I helped get the a housing production plan grant to update that plan, and it was very competitive. There were almost 800 applications, only 300 and something were awarded. One reason I think that we got that is because we were able to put $5,000 match in for that plan that we could cover under the town planner's budget. But because I'm tasked with helping multiple departments, including my own, in getting grants, I don't know what the opportunities are going to be in the next year, so that's why I need it there. I had a lost opportunity a few years ago. I did a highest and best use study when we purchased the Randolph Savings Bank. At the same time, I wanted to do a highest and best use study of the train depot because we had just purchased that. And I had to wait 3 years to do the highest and best use of that building just because I didn't have $5,000 more to put into that study.
Is this the grant, or is this to hire people to help with the grant?
That's to use either as consultant fees that might be needed during the grant process, or just to put in as a matching funds when you're applying for a grant.
All right, so so you would put, who do the consultant fees, who do you hire for those? I mean, just generally, I'm not asking for names or anything. I'm just curious. Are you hiring like an expert in something to help you write the grant?
Yes, so we are doing that now through procurement for the housing production plan.
Okay, thank you. And then the rest is if you have to put up matching funds in order to say you're putting forth something, that's what it is.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for that, Carolyn. Any other questions for the economic development portion of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Brief
Mr.
comment,
Coulter.
if I may. Another example of consolidation. We knew we needed a grant manager. Pam has stepped up to do that position. That saved us $85,000 for a new employee plus benefits. And in the past year alone, she has won for this community over $3 million in grants for a very small increase in her base salary. So again, it's part of the consolidation strategy, where we, instead of hiring people, we look for ways internally for people that can do more, and we give them a very small increase, and they're happy to contribute more. So I just wanted to point that out to you.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Yes, Chet.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Coulter and Pam. The only issue I have is I understand the job you're doing and your additional duties, but a lot of people are going to look at the 5% increase, and they may find that excessive. not knowing exactly one person in the job making $105,000 a year. I understand you have extra duties and you have the consultants to help you for your grants, but I know, I just have a problem with increase 5% on salaries. That's, and I'm going to bring that up on every, any increase over what everybody else gets. Nothing against anybody, just I'm trying to be, trying to cut down, trying to eliminate the high cost of salaries in this town.
No offense taken at
Thank you.
all. I won't ask Pam to defend her own recommended rate increase. That's mine and Mark's recommendation. Pam wasn't even aware of it until we did the budget. I would trade off 5%, which is 2% more than the COLA that everyone is getting, for $3 million in new revenues, about 7 out of 7 days a week. And it's all about the bottom line. It's all about investment. I could make that argument. I could argue that 50% in return for $3 million, $50,000, $3 million, great investment. I think Finance Committee members would see the wisdom of that investment as well. So I respectfully disagree. That's good business. Would it have been better if we hired another full-time employees to do grants at $89,000 a year plus all their benefits? So I appreciate your position, Chet, I really do. I just respectfully disagree with it. That's all.
All right, thank you very much for that. Any other questions or comments from the committee on the economic development portion of Article 14? David.
Thank you, Vaughn. I appreciate that. Thank you for coming here to present the budget, and it looks pretty modest in, as far as the overall budget. I do agree with the previous speaker about overall in the budget the increases, and here's where my overall concern is that we saw that there was a free cash policy in which we were tackling $300,000 a year till we got down to zero. And then, and when we looked at that, we always saw that year over year, that 300 was coming against the growth in the department budgets. Instead of growing at an extra 300,000, they took off a little bit until we got to where we were. In this year, and what I haven't seen clarification on yet, and which I hope to, is to see that when the TIF money rolled off of the debt service and it rolled in as FY26 new growth, is that what's being used to get us down to zero? Because if it is, I kind of have a problem with that, because that's not subtracting from the overall budget in good faith to chip away at that dependency, because when debt rolls off and it goes into an operating budget, you can't get that money back towards debt service on future budgets. We need to preserve our debt capacity, and I feel like when that money comes out of debt and it becomes operating budget, it becomes very hard for us to handle very, very large projects that are in our pipeline. I'm watching that like a hawk because it's so much. Town people are being asked to pay for
Mr. Lurie,
debt,
I'm going to cut you off
debt
there.
exclusions.
Mr. Lurie,
and
I'm going to
everything
cut you
else.
off there because
It's directly
we
impacted
are on
by
the
that.
economic
Of
development
course,
portion
yeah.
of the
Of course,
budget.
and to get specific with this
Thank you.
department, you could, to add further to the conversation, where are the grants going to come in the future? Are there going to be funds when the state is feeling the pain? We heard problems where ARPA monies were not coming in as fast as the money spent, and we were short by billions of dollars.
Mr. Lurie, do you have
so
questions
that has an impact on our
the economic development
doesn't an
portion?
economic? I think it was presented that her duty and the accolades and the well-deserved credit for finding grants. I think it was mentioned $3 million worth of grants. That where's the future going to be with grants? Is if her job's, in other words, if she's hunting for more grants, is she fishing in a pond that doesn't have any fish?
Mr. Lurie,
That's a
keep your
direct
questions, please
question
keep
about
questions based on
is
this
based on-
portion of the budget.
It's about her job. of getting grants. Are there going to be grants for her to find?
Well,
It's a fair question.
Please keep questions focused on the portion of the budget that we're discussing. We don't want to get into TIFs and all these other
It was
things.
brought up, and TIFs have a direct impact on the overall budget, on where monies are coming
Thank you,
to
Dave.
get us down to zero on free cash
They
dependence.
may
Thank you, Dave. Carolyn?
I would just say they may have an impact on the overall budget, but they don't have an impact necessarily. We're here to hear about this department's budget and their needs and what they're asking for so that we can make a recommendation to town meeting. So I would appreciate if we could just focus on that right now, and then we can at some other time discuss.
Excuse
the-
me, Vaughn, we're not in a
Dave,
debate.
Dave,
We're not, this is a public
I know we're not
hearing.
here to debate. We're here to discuss a budget.
We're here, Vaughn, to talk to a petitioner about a budget. It's not about somebody and a member talking to a member about the merits of a question. That's not what we do. We talk directly to the people in front of us. That's how it's done.
Dave, we are covering the economic development portion of
And-
Article 14. Please don't keep interrupting. I'm trying to clarify what
ahead.
we're doing here. We're here to discuss Article 14, the general fund operating budget. We are on the economic development or economic development, depending who you ask, portion of that budget. The budget is on page 32. Let's please, as a committee, try to stay focused on what we're supposed to be doing here. We are supposed to be gathering information on the budget before us so we can inform the public on this. We're not supposed to be getting involved in all these other discussions. Do you have questions,
Those
Dave? Dave,
discussions
do you have?
are
I'm not looking at
exactly-
discussions. I'm looking for questions on this budget.
There's a portion of this that's getting paid for directly by increases of revenue in our operating budget.
Then what is
Is
the
that
question?
correct? There's
What
a,
is
if there's,
the question?
it shows here a
Dave.
5% increase on her budget. It shows it.
I can see that.
So
Thank you for
that
pointing.
comes, well, if it's in here and we're talking about an operating budget,
Yes.
how could you say that it's off track, asking about the source of revenue for the exact thing that's being asked to
The
pay
source
for?
of revenue
Is the general
isn't.
fund.
Yes, it is.
Correct.
But we're not here to discuss. We're just here to discuss this portion of the budget. Can you please keep questions
We-
focused on this?
There's been a.
Dave, let's stay on track as a committee. Let's all stay on track and stay focused on what we're here to do. Do you have a question, Dave? Economic development portion of Article 14.
I asked a
general-
question about
What's
grants.
the question?
I
What is
asked
the
about
question?
grants. Are there grants even out there to justify an increase in a budget when there's
Thank you.
less?
That's the question?
Grant revenue available to.
That's the
a town?
question.
It is. Isn't that a direct question?
That's your question.
I don't know why you're asking me when it was a direct question. I think I asked
Mr.
it
Call,
three
did you
times
have an
already.
answer to the question? Thank you, Dave.
Mr. Chairman, there seems to be an assumption that we pay for merit increases with increases in revenue. I think I've made the point several times here in the past 48 hours that we're able to pay high performers by reducing expenses, by consolidating jobs, by using technology. I believe, I know where David's coming from, and I respect his opinion, but to suggest that meritorious increases only come from new revenues, there's a lot of ways to get to a bottom line other than just throwing cash at it. We do it through consolidation, technology, and merging jobs. That's where this well-deserved raise is coming from. But to answer the second part, if there comes a day where there are no grants out there, if there comes a day where there's no grants out there and that we don't need a grant writer, then we'll make the necessary adjustments. But because the individual next to me is paid below the median average of any economic director in the immediate area, and that'll be in the submittal, then I don't think an additional 2% over the COLA is going to make a big impact. I understand the argument, but I think this is the wrong case to make the argument. There are cases for the finance department where every one of them are getting bigger raises than this professional. They have just found $12.7 million in free cash. Are we going to argue that those raises are not meritorious?
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Calder. Do we have any other questions or comments from the committee? Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget, the economic development portion of that budget.
I have a
Do we
comment
have-
before you'd
Donna?
recognize someone. I do have a comment.
Yes,
The comment is that that the question would be asked across every single budget increase, not just the one in front of us. because I feel that all of them are affected by the revenue, whether it's from efficiencies you found or revenue that showed up that rolled off of debt and into the budget. I'd like to understand what happened in FY26 with money that rolled off of debt, because it's a fair question.
Then, Dave, I'd really encourage you, as you pointed out last night, accept my invitation for the meeting with Mark, Biz, and myself, and we'll go through it in great detail. We're an open book.
You can't do it in front of here. We changed our policy from
As you
doing
know,
subcommittees.
As you know, Biz is on half-time. She's recovering from a severe heart attack.
I'm
So
not-
she can't be with us this evening to discuss that.
I'm saying this will come up all the time, not just tonight. It
Then
will
I would
come up.
invite those members to come in and speak to
With
us.
all due respect, what we had was a decision to stop doing subcommittees where we would delve into those things. It was decided that we were going to have our subcommittee work done in here.
Dave,
This would be it.
Dave, we're not gonna get
Unfortunately,
back on
public
subcommittee
hearings
discussion.
became the only place left for us to ask those questions, the only place left. And it's a public thing. It's not a, let's have some coffee. I want to have it as a public thing where there's minutes taken and it's out there for the public to understand as well, not just Dave
Right,
Lurie.
thank you for that, Dave. Jonna, do you have a question on Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget Portion, Economic Development?
Yeah, I'm just curious because the previous speaker, Tom, said that her salary was lower than the norm. Is the norm that he's referring to the private sector or the municipalities?
Municipalities. Oh, excuse me, through you, Mr. Chairman. Municipalities.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions from the committee? Lisa?
So I just want to point out, okay, that this is where my motion last night came in. It's in order for this is all the taxpayer money. All of this is the taxpayers' money. They want to understand, as do I, how we get to these expenditures. And I agree with Mr. Lurie that it is not just pertinent to the one department that may be in front of us at any given time. So again, it goes to asking for these types of questions to be discussed, to put it as an agenda item, because you really cannot, we as a committee or the taxpayers, get a clear view of where and how we're spending all our money and where the decisions are made and where we're going. Thank you.
Thank you for that,
Mr.
Lisa.
Chairman, I can't let that
Yes,
slide,
Mr.
so if you'll
Falco.
indulge me. We've been working on this budget since October. It's been nothing but an open book. The question was asked of the employee from this part of the room to defend her own salary, her own pay increase. I would never put an employee in that position. Right now, the town of Stoughton is in better financial shape than I would bet 90% of the communities in Massachusetts. We're a bottom line organization. There are lots of ways to get to a bottom line. I really do welcome that you question every single one of the expenses in that book. So much so that we've invited everybody to private lessons if they don't know what the budget is all about. But unless you're in a position, as Mark and I are, and Biz is, to get to a bottom line for the municipal side of under 3.7%, then I think to make a judgment on the value of an employee is fair to ask, and we'll give you candid answers. But to suggest that what we're doing in this town, your town, the other FinCom, isn't unique, suggests that people aren't reading the budget, are suggesting that people on this committee didn't open their budget until last night. When we take 6 months to work on something, I would hope people open the budget before the sound of the gavel if you want to debate line items about people's careers.
I don't understand.
Excuse
me,
Yvonne,
if
where
I
that's
could for that.
coming
We're not
from.
gonna-
I don't understand where that's coming from.
If I could just follow
Stop
up.
all the crosstalk now.
through you, Vaughn, if I may just briefly follow up on my...
No, we're not going to have a back and forth.
I'm going through you, Vaughn. My point here is there seems to be a contention that taxpayers and/or finance committee
We are
members
going to get
have,
back to the agenda.
have legitimate
Article 14,
questions.
Lisa,
There's an adversarial tone here that need not be at all.
And we're gonna end that now by getting back to the agenda.
Is to understand
Lisa,
how
thank you.
we've watched select board meetings,
Thank
we've
you.
watched the public meetings, and there hasn't been discussions on the detail and what our policies are to get
Thank you
us
for
to
that,
this
Lisa.
budget.
We're going to get
It
back
should
to
not
Article
be an
14.
adversarial
Lisa,
tone.
Lisa, we're going to get back to Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget. Any more questions from the committee on the economic development portion of this budget? Heidi, thank you.
Yeah, I'll move that. I just want to say thank you, Ms. McCarthy, for all the hard work that you do for this town. I have been on town meetings since the beginning of when they started the high school, when they were ready to vote on the high school. So just a little bit longer than you've been here, because I remember when you were introduced to us. And I remember being impressed then, and you have not, you continue to impress me each time I see you and each time you present in front of town meeting. Now I'm in a different seat, and I'm seeing you in a different seat. And I am even more impressed when I look at these numbers, when I look at the budget, and I just want to say thank you. And I also want to apologize for what you're experiencing here tonight, because it does not reflect everybody at the table.
Thank you, Heidi.
I also would like to say that the small amount that we can give for the large amount that you give to our town, it will never be able to match your creative genius, your ability to find funding, your ability to change the downtown in different places that I probably don't all know.
Heidi,
And I
don't
just want to say
interrupt,
thank you.
but we want to kind of stay focused on questions on this. Thank you, Heidi. But let's try to, as a committee, let's all try to stay focused on questions to the budget. Okay? Thank you. Because that's how we're going to collect information to do deliberations. So ask questions that are relevant to this. Any other questions from the committee? Economic development portion of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget. Okay. I'm going to go to the engineering portion of this budget. Oh, Chet, did you have a question? Oh, I was going to cover them all at the same time. We can go to the public. Any questions or comments from the public economic development portion of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget? Cynthia, please identify yourself for the record.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. I'm the chair of another standing committee. And, thank you. Maybe because I've been a chair for over 25 years, I know the open meeting law forward and backward. Failure to obey 2 warnings from the chair, just be quiet, is an actual crime. It's called disturbing a public meeting. You can actually be arrested for that. And it bothers me as a chair and as a citizen of Stoughton since 1948. I come to these meetings, it's a great deal of effort for me to get here and get home again, and to just come for a fist fight with words is a disgrace to the town. Now, as to the person that we're speaking about, it might be helpful to town meeting if in the background material there was a list of the $3 million, so that we don't have to just pretend it's some nebulous farm. Asking someone to predict grant future, there are no crystal balls up there. None of us know what's going to happen. And asking someone to justify her job based on the future is not ethical or fair.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. Any other questions or comments from the public Article 14, general fund operating budget, the economic development portion. Hearing none, next item, we're going to the engineering.
You're not going to recognize me?
On-
Point of personal privilege,
Okay.
how's that? I'll
Okay.
raise a point of personal
What
privilege.
is it now, Dave? Is this a question on
We are
on economic
members,
development?
we are members of the Finance Committee, and our job is to be tough with our questions, to vet every dollar spent. And you're the chair of the Finance Committee, and your job is not, as far as I know, a chair does not argue with its members. You do have the responsibility of moving the meeting along. I get that. But to say that we can't ask questions right down the middle of what the material is about is just completely wrong. And to suggest also that we're somehow, nobody's ever said anything about the person in front of us. It's generally speaking, we're trying to be careful with, budget increases that are more than average. I think that's how that was put to the people right in front of us about the budget. Nothing is being done unethically. We do this all the time. It happens every single year. We call into question, why is this raised more than the others?
Then that should be the question,
Those are-
Dave, not a discussion on the future of grants
It's-
and TIFs and all the other things.
It is, everything is relevant. Everything is relevant. You can't just dismiss
Dave,
questions.
we are going to get back to the
No,
agenda.
I am
Yes,
not,
we are.
I'm trying to make a point.
Can you get to that point?
The point is that you need to recognize that we are the members of the Finance Committee entitled to ask whatever questions
Are relevant.
pertinent. Yes,
Thank you.
relevant, because they are relevant. You can't dismiss them.
Thank you, Dave.
That's not your job to dismiss
Thank you very
questions.
much, Dave. Article 14, general fund operating budget. Portion we're on now is engineering, which is on page 46. Have a wonderful evening, Pam. Thank you very much for presenting.
Point of personal privilege.
Yes, Diane.
I understand what Mr. Coulter has said about, and I wish I had the opportunity to come and listen to some of the individual teaching about the budget. And I'm just wondering if maybe at some before, maybe 6:30 or so, before one of our meetings, that he could do something like that, so some of us who came earlier could actually understand some of what's going on.
I'd be honored to do so.
The email,
We'll set a date.
if I remember correctly, the email was sent out by the town manager to finance committee members, and I'm going to paraphrase it, but it basically said to contact someone to schedule an appointment. So I'm just saying, if you want to schedule that, then okay, you schedule for 6:30 or 6 or 5 or whatever.
On.
Well, that would
Article
give,
14.
that would give the rest of the, just in case anybody else wanted to come.
Okay, thank you. Article 14, engineering, page 46. Yeah. Yes, Elliot.
Just in the sake of brevity, perhaps we could take the moderator's thing and dispose of that so he can get on with his life.
Well, we'd have probably been through a lot of this already had we not gone off the rails on this. Let's get engineering, because we've already got them here, and then
All right,
we can do that. I understand what you're saying, though. Engineering, page 46.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mark
You're welcome.
Mark Tisdale, Assistant Town Manager, Town Engineer. With me tonight is Craig Horsfall. He's the Assistant Town Engineer, Assistant Director of Development Services. Director of Development Services is my third title. With me tonight, what you have for budgets is the Development Services budgets. And since it's a relatively new structure of Development Services every year, hopefully not much longer, I can explain to you exactly what Development Services is, and then move on from there. Development Services is a group of departments. It's not a department, it's a group of departments. Years back, the previous town manager lumped a few departments together to do a permitting for constant communication and efficiency. Those departments are the Engineering Department, the Building Department, Board of Health, Planning Department, Environmental Affairs Conservation Commission, Code Enforcement, Weights and Measures, and GIS. All departments to do with permitting, functions and inspections and things of that nature. So that is what development services is. It is not a department, it's a group of departments. Our mission statement, and we live by this every day. I do want to read the mission statement. Hope you don't fall asleep, but we do put a lot of work into this mission statement and live by it every day. I think the employees in the engineering department actually get frustrated with me because once a week I probably read this out to them when they don't comply with it. So here we go. The mission of development services is to build and maintain a strong and effective group of departments that remain focused on providing superior customer service to this town of Stoughton, its residents, the general public, the development community, and all town departments, while maintaining a positive relationship in all our interactions, as well as a professional work environment. Our group will partner with the development community to encourage and ensure a development process that is proficient, reasonable, and predictable while promoting economic growth, safety, usability, and sustainability to our town. Next, I'd like to just cover some of the, since there's several departments here, I just don't want to get right into the budget. I want to explain to you some of the successes we've had this year. I'll keep it very quick, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman?
That's fine.
Okay. The building department, I actually have two pages. I'll keep it down to maybe a page. The building department, their big thing going on right now is the rolling out of electronic permitting for their department. There's been a lot of work and effort with electronic permitting. Please do not underestimate that. When I say there's probably 5 meetings a week, that's at least an hour or more for the last 6 to 8 months. That's what it takes to actually implement electronic permitting. And that's only for the first module, which is the building department. That module, we're happy to announce, we've announced it previously, is online. It's rolled out seamlessly. We've literally had no complaints about the module. It is very common to other towns. Many of these contractors use modules like this in other towns. We were one of the last towns to actually implement it. So it's new to us, but not new to the community. So I'd like to just thank the employees out there. Craig, very involved in this program. Our administrators for making an effective rollout of that. We are now working on the second phases of electronic permitting. This year is a historically high permitting year for building department. We're trending for over 1,500 permits, different types of permits, small, big, medium, but the number is a number. It's trending for over 1,500, which relates to historically the highest revenue we'll be collecting in our building department ever. There's been some large projects, right, logistics park and things like that, but there's been a larger volume of projects too, which is good for us. There's a lot of activity out there. Electronic permitting has a lot to do with it also because we're capturing a lot of the smaller permits that a lot of people probably got away with because they just didn't pull permits. Now contractors go home at night after they've worked their job. They don't have to take 2 hours off to pull a $25 permit or $50 permit with the town. They do it from their home. So we're getting some more revenue with that. Weights and measures, as you know, a couple years ago we rolled that in-house with Sean. He got certified. He studied, got certified, took a test, and now he does all our weights and measures. He does it for all the scales, all the gas pumps in town. We're bringing in revenue of that, approximately $14,000 per year for that. If you remember, Sean got about a $7,000 stipend a couple years ago to do that. Now he's fully certified. We have it in-house. Licensing, we brought that upstairs last year, an update on that. That's going very well. We brought licensing upstairs to make a more efficient process throughout the town. A lot of the stakeholders that signed off on licensing were the building department, were the engineering department, Board of Health. Why not bring licensing up to the area where most of the people are involved in it? Kelly's been great. She oversees the program, and this has been the first year in a long time that we got all the licenses into the selectmen early in December, approved, all completed seamlessly. And there's a lot of overlap now with Kelly being upstairs. If she's not there, licenses don't stop. We've cross-trained other employees to help out, like James, who's our administrator in that department. Code enforcement, again, very active department, 174 complaints on zoning infractions. In the last year, most of them have been resolved. There's about 20 outstanding ones that Matt Raposa is currently working on. Matt's been a great addition to the team. He also, last year, if you remember, got a stipend for parking enforcement, so he works 5 more hours a week now to do parking enforcement. He comes in early in the morning time, walks around the town parking lots, the streets, things like that, goes back out around noontime. Most things have 2-hour parking limits. And long story short, he's collected in over $12,000 in revenue in that process since July of last year, so just over 6 months. Planning, Bill Roth, Planning Department, you'll hear about them. Bill, I don't have to say much about him because he's just the best town planner we've ever had. He's very knowledgeable, probably the most knowledgeable town planner I've ever seen. It's a peace of mind for department heads when they have an employee that they don't really have to worry about because they're smarter at you at what they do, which is great. For me, I could leave Bill alone. He comes in, updates me, and he's just a great employee. As you can see, the last few years we've been doing a lot of planning with the zoning articles that have been at town meeting. Board of Health, Larry Perry leads that division. That's a division of the engineering department. Larry's a registered town sanitarian, very detail-oriented. I hate to say it, the Board of Health is kind of it's generally not a showy department, right? They don't have special projects like engineering has, intersections and things like that. They just have a lot of day-to-day stuff that they work on. They permit housing, they deal with housing complaints, food establishments, pools. They deal with the town beach, dumpsters, tobacco sales, septic systems, and so on. They have a lot of day-to-day activities, and Larry and Sean are all stars in that department. I won't talk about the engineering department. I'll take the hit on that one. Right, Greg? We don't need to go down that path. But if you would like to more about the engineering department, I'd be happy to have a conversation about what we do and talk to you about what the current projects going on. There are also annual reports that get published, and we usually pepper those with all the projects. So you should have your annual report soon. And there's town manager reports that get posted online that you can read. The last thing I do want to mention is our GIS department, which is a key department. I think Heidi mentioned it a little bit last night. She thought we were getting rid of Larry. We would never get rid of Larry. Larry's just probably the best GIS coordinator in all of Massachusetts, and I really mean that. All the GIS, too, when I first got here, there was filing cabinets. We would go pull the folders out, look at the maps. We don't do that anymore. We go to the GIS, we click on a parcel, all the plans we have are on that parcel. He scans them in, he uploads them there. Every time there's a water main addition, a water main repair, a new service, a new sewer connection, roadways are repaved, new roadways are created, anything you can think of that happens, a new stop sign gets installed. Larry goes out there and GPSs it. All this gets imported into the GIS system. It's all very current. It's pretty much an asset database system. I get very excited about GIS, so I'm sorry. I could keep on going on and on. But generally, and last thing, he doesn't just work on GIS. The org charts you all have that you've seen, he does things like that. He's like a graphic artist. He knows how to use programs like that. So, and he just, again, I could go on and on about Larry. But now on to the engineering budget. I did not talk about our successes, but if you want me to, I can. The budget is pretty straightforward. The overall budget's well below the town manager directive of 3.8%. We're at an overall increase of 1.2% this year for the engineering department budget. We consolidated a couple lines, office supplies, equipment repair supply lines, things like that, just to make a more transparent budget. 2 lines that are pretty much the same thing. They should be consolidated into one. On the GIS coordinator position, we're just looking at his FTEs. He's doing a lot of another task that Larry's been working on due to DPW, water and sewer has had some changes. They've lost some personnel. Larry's taken on some of the DEP compliance reporting requirements, and he can do that through his GIS program. The lead reporting, he knows how many water services are leads. So we've transferred his FTEs from 0.7 in the engineering department to 0.6, and the other 0.2 are in water and sewer, in the water and sewer department. And that's it. That's all I got for engineering for the larger changes. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much for that, Mr. Tisdale. You think what was your question? Well, I was thanking him right now. I'll finish thanking him. Thank you very much, Mr. Tisdale. Do we have any questions from the Finance Committee? Diane, did you have a question?
That was my question about the GIS coordinator. we're lowering the amount of time he's working, or?
No,
Because
no.
even adding the .2, it's still not a full-time position.
No. We're at, he's .2 in water, .2 in sewer,
Ah,
0.6 in engineering.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right. That
Just
would
because
be
he took on that
impressive.
compliance.
If he could do that in .6, I would be very impressed.
Oh, no, he took on that DEP compliance reporting for the water and sewer departments, so that's why the FTE shifted slightly, just to
Okay.
reflect his actual
Ask a
duties.
second question?
If you'd like to ask a second question, if it's relevant to this, feel
It
free.
is. The Developmental Services Secretary, there was an actual, and then there's nothing else there in that line. Is that person still around, or?
Yeah, so it's development services, not developmental, but the development services secretary line was from a few years ago. That was the meeting minute secretary line. So last year, we renamed that. That's not in this budget. Last year's budget, we renamed it to meeting minutes to reflect what it actually is.
You good with that?
So what is the new, is this incorporated into the office administrator?
Right now, there's a separate line, 4 down from the top, says meeting wages. That's 5150.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you for that, Diane. Joel?
Actually, I had the same question on the GIS coordinator. Also, on your project engineer, the FTE is .5. Does that imply that he's assigned somewhere else too?
Correct.
And that would be
sewer and water, I believe. Same two departments.
.25 in each?
0.25 in each.
Okay, fine. And your FTE is .8?
Yes, correct.
So what's the other .2?
It's in the, where is he? Yeah, see, this is why there's .2 in his budget. He just left.
He's the .2?
Yeah, it's in town manager budget because I am the assistant town engineer. I'm sorry, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, assistant town manager.
And I think I asked this question last year, Mark, but I apologize for asking again. Under expenses, you have a stormwater coordinator. Is that like Weston and Sampson or somebody like that?
Yeah, yes, exactly. It's a stormwater consultant.
Okay, is this an ongoing contract that you've had for some years now, or
Yeah, if you remember.
automatically renewed, or?
This is the requirement for the mandated MS4 permit that we have to comply with. We hire a consultant, they go out there, they analyze our drainage system, they do the mapping, they do testing, they do
Yeah,
all that
that's what I thought.
kind of
Okay.
thing. Yep.
But none of this is shared with sewer and water?
No, this is a drainage, this is stormwater.
Oh, well, excuse me.
Yep, no problem. Different pipe.
Civil engineer talk I can never.
Right.
Thank you, Joel. Any other questions from the committee? Heidi?
This is going to be a tough one. I see a line item for longevity and then super longevity. And then the footnote is contractual increase. Is one of those contracts longer than the other? And they're both really long? Like, what is this?
No, that's actually a great question. You won't see that as time goes on too much more. There are some employees that have been working here for over 30 years, a long time, and they're grandfathered into the old contracts for their unions where they get super longevity. Typically, their last 3 years of their employment, they get a 5% increase, a 5% increase, and 5% increase by contract. And that's what super longevity, it's a contractual term. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, thank you for that, Heidi. Any other questions from the committee on the engineering portion? Dave?
Yeah, through you, Vaughn, thank you. Thank you for presenting. Excellent job, as always. Just to be fair, as the last budget that was in front of us, it was an increase similar. This has to do with the Office Administrator Development Services. I'm going to keep doing this for things that are above average because it should be fair. We shouldn't be just picking on any one department. Is that until I know what's going on with the TIF money that rolled off and whether it showed up in the budget to get us down to zero dependency on free cash, I'm going to keep asking these questions. What is the need? What is it about that position that
happens to be what looks to be the highest increase on your budget at 5%?
That's a good question, Dave. That is a merit increase to our office administrator, Kristen. I don't know if you all are familiar with Kristen. She's essentially she's the quarterback of the operation from an administrative side. Kristen supervises 4 administrative employees. She might be the only administrator in the town that supervises that many other administrative employees. Kristen has been a huge asset in this electronic permitting process we're going through. When I say this, there's 5 meetings a week, at least an hour. She's in every one of them. That takes away from what she's been doing, and she's a very busy person. If you think about it, we have 7 departments and we have pretty much 3 administrators. Most towns that have that operation have at least 4 or 5 in that operation. That's because Kristen does it all. If we lost Kristen, we would have to hire another person to do all that work. Kristen's the first one in, well before the 8:30 mark, and usually the last one out of our office, unless Craig and I are at meetings like this. She puts the time in, and it's really just, it's a merit increase to award a great employee for the work she does and putting in the extra hours when needed and things of that nature.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I just have a different question. Does your department in engineering, or I guess I don't think planning necessarily, but do you guys get involved with the state project on like Central near Tosca Drive? Are you involved? It is the right place to ask that.
Absolutely, yep.
That project, is there going to be a timeline in terms of when completion? And in that timeline, when do you anticipate the flagpole to go back?
That's a good question. I'll refer that question to Craig because Craig's heavily involved in that project every day.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, that project's actually well ahead of schedule. I think it was probably a couple of years in the timeline that they had set forth, but the contractor has really gotten at it, done a good job, and is well beyond where they normally would be. If you go out there today, you see that they're already relocating telephone poles and things like that. I've seen projects where that takes years to occur, and this has happened really quickly. So it really looks like I think the masts have gone up now for the signals. Once the weather breaks, the contractor will get back out there and put the signals up and then finish the work. I would expect mid-year this year. I'm hopeful for that. Their contract, their schedule that they've laid out extends far beyond that. But as I said, they're well ahead of schedule at this
So
point.
is that flagpole like one of the last things they'll end up doing, or somewhere along the way, do you think?
Likely, yeah. So that'll go up along with some of the landscaping and things. They'll probably set the foundation for it and everything, but the actual pole you won't see up probably until the end.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Well done.
Any other questions from the committee on the engineering portion of Lisa?
Hi. So this is just a general question, basically picking up on what I heard Mr. Gito from the Select Board talk about in regard to giving people forever money raises above the 3% and giving certain employees special treatment as opposed to, like you mentioned, a special project, giving them a one-time bonus for going above and beyond the duty or taking on extra work. Wherever I've worked, everyone's always expected me to work my hardest and very best. I'm not quite sure why we're not doing that here, and this goes toward what's our policy, why we don't. I mean, I heard our town manager say, because we don't do that. But it doesn't mean we can't do that or have that. Again, this is taxpayer dollars, and this goes into benefits, this goes into retirement, this goes into a lot more. So this, again, is why we'd like to talk policy.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Any other questions from the committee? Arnie?
Microphone. Hi, I just got a question. I'm just picking one particular project, the Tosca Drive one. Is that fully funded?
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah.
The only reason I ask is that in fiscal year 2026, they're asking $400,000 for parking and landscape improvements. They're asking another 75 for Central to Canton Street improvements and designs. $500,000 for, oh, that's a different project, sorry.
Arnie,
The
is this,
different
is this in the
projects,
engineering budget? Because I'm having a hard time finding what,
It's
I
on
can't
the-
hear you, first of all.
It's on the 4-year capital plan for 2026.
Right.
Yeah,
We're not on capital
We're on the
right now.
We're on
We're on the
operating
operating budget.
budget, so this is, yeah, the operating budget out of the long sheets
So
here.
on page
Yeah.
46 of
Yeah.
the budget, I don't know if you have the blue copy, but with the.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, those are questions that would be
So
appropriate for.
on page
the
46 is the engineering area.
So when would be
Article
appropriate
14
time to ask these questions?
Well, I don't really know what the question is. I couldn't really hear you, but not right now because we're going over the engineering portion of the budget. So we have on here department head, assistant department head, environmental affairs officer, and there's a whole list here. So if the questions are based on page 46, now would be the good time to ask them.
This would
That's
fall
it.
in the category of like, if the motion that was asked last night actually went forward, it would be one of the topics that we could put in there. But we can't because
we're not on
allowed
capital
to,
now.
we're not allowed to vote on motions.
We're not on capital right now, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Jonna, do you have a question on the engineering portion of Article 14?
I just have a comment for Mark. I want to thank you so much for changing the light to the red ball and stopping all that stupid traffic and not have, you did a great job on that. Thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
Any questions from the committee on the engineering portion of Article 14? Okay. Any questions or comments from the public on the engineering portion of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget? Okay, Mark, you also mentioned building and code enforcement, that area there. So while we have you here, any questions from the committee on the building? I'm going to get there right now. Page 42, building and code enforcement. You had discussed it, so I thought now would be a good time to just kind of cover that. Questions from the committee, page 42, building and zoning, building code enforcement. You have code enforcement in the same area as zoning, right?
Correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. Do we have any questions from the committee on the building and code enforcement, building and zoning, page 42 of the budget, part of Article 14, General Fund Operating Budget? Yes, Joel.
Sorry. The plumbing and electrical inspectors are both part-time?
Correct.
Thank you. And you have in here a deputy inspector for 9,000. Is that also part-time?
That's as needed.
Is it?
It's an on-call basis. If the,
Is
one
it-
of the,
Is it an employee of the town, or?
it's by hour, as needed. So they don't
Right,
come,
so
we
it's,
call them in.
I think I
Yeah, it's
know
part, it's part-time, if
Yeah,
you want.
I know the
Yeah.
category. I've actually am one myself, so.
Right, yeah.
Working for the town clerk.
Right.
Okay, so, all right, and the code enforcement manager, oh, I'm sorry, he's at full-time. Okay, yeah, we talked about this last year.
Yep.
All right, I'm good, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions from the committee on the, Dave, you have a question on this?
I do, thank you, through you.
You're welcome.
Just to be fair-minded in how we talk about any of the lines that exceed what would be an average above 3.5% or so. Overall, there's a two-part question, because this budget is 6.2%, which is more than ones we've seen so far. So overall, the budget's pretty high, and the other is the deputy inspector showing up at 5.9%. Could you talk about the justification for that raise on the budget?
So the deputy inspector, that's a good question, Dave. Just to reflect the actual time, we can never project how many times we had to call on the deputy inspector. It depends when the other inspector is in or out. If they're on vacation, things of that nature. We never know how many inspections are going to come when somebody's on vacation, and we're going to pay this person by hour. So if you look at the actual for 2024, it's $15,453. We ran a projection for this year. We don't think it's going to be as high as that. So we went up a little bit from 8,500 to 9,000. That's why you see a 5.9% raise. Hopefully, Dave, the idea is not to use the 9,000, but we got a plan for it. It's one of these positions where if somebody's out, we never know how many inspections are going to be needed when a particular person is out. If you're out at the beginning of construction season, the inspections are going to be probably higher versus a different part of the season. So it's
Okay, so on the overall budget, can you speak to why this department
Yep.
seems to be a little bit inflation? I don't know, what do you attribute it
There's
to?
one particular thing leading to that, and I was going to get to that. Footnote 1, it's the only footnote in the department. If you look at the two lines, this is different than some of the other employees that we just mentioned. This is an employee who is the administrator for the department. Been in the department about 2 years, just over 2 years, really an all-star in the department. If you look at the job description now, this is a classic example of an employee going above and beyond. If you look at the job description, this employee is the building department administrator. All the functions associated with the building department. I just explained to you all of the departments in development services, right? This person's acting as the true number 2 to development services. That other person that we just talked about, Kristen, who runs the show for all the administrative duties, this person reports to Kristen, is her true number 2. When Kristen's out, he covers, it's seamless. Everything works seamlessly when Kristen is out because James takes it on. He doesn't complain. He doesn't file grievances with unions because he's working outside of his job description. He just is part of the team, gets the work done. So we are promoting him. This is not just throwing a raise at somebody for whatever reason you want to come up with. This is promoting somebody, and you'll see, we're getting rid of his program administrator position title, and we're giving him assistant office administrator development service to reflect what he's actually doing right now. And I did a comp, and you all have that as a backup of other positions similar to that in town, and there's probably 8 to 10 of them that you have. And I think the average comes out to about $80,000, and we're at $76,000 for his salary. He didn't ask for this. It was something that I saw as an operation in charge of 7 departments, and I feel that, he sees other positions coming up quite often that are around the salary or higher. I just mentioned those other ones. If somebody leaves one of those other positions, he could leave and go get another position. And now Kristen is working more hours, training a new person. Who knows what those capabilities would be and how efficient we will be in that operation. We have somebody who's great. We want to keep this person for a long time. And it's my job to see that and reward somebody like that and actually give them a promotion. This is, again, not throwing them money. They're doing something outside their normal job description. If he doesn't do that, that puts huge strain on our department, and specifically the employee I just talked about who's already working more hours to do her job. And she's very efficient at it. It's not because she's not good at it. She's very efficient at what she does. I'm sure Craig could add many things. You don't have to. I don't want to put you on the spot, but we have a great operation right now. We're very efficient. We have 3 main administrators in the department. It's an efficient operation. There's 6 or 7 departments and divisions in our development services. Break those all out to separate departments, and you're at 4 or 5 administrators. That's how efficient our administrators are at what they do. Also, just to pile it on a little bit, last year we had parking stipend from Matt. Matt does the parking. There's administrative duties associated with that. Matt doesn't just say, I know we're talking about this position, but Matt doesn't say, here's a ticket. He tries to talk to people. He'll go knock on the doors of the businesses in the downtown and say, hey, is somebody over the 2-hour limit? Long story short is that there's a ticket. There's an administrative function with it. He also tries to talk to the people saying, if you're constantly parking here and you're not supposed to, we can sell you parking permits in the downtown in our parking lots. So Matt talks to them, and there's administrative duties with issuing the permit, filing the permit, the money associated with that, all of that. And James takes on that responsibility. And it goes on. And James has been involved in the e-permitting process with Kristen, the longer side, in all these meetings every week that we have. We have fantastic employees in that department, and we want to retain this chemistry. We know we can't do it forever, right? People are going to leave maybe one time or other, but right now we can keep that operation efficient like it's been for a few more years, hopefully. And then who knows what happens, but maybe Craig will be in charge of it then.
Thank you very much for that explanation. And thank you for the footnote at the bottom of page 43 that mentions the program administrator has been promoted. we have any other questions from the committee on this building? Heidi, do you have a question?
I see we got rid of the assistant building inspector. Is the building inspector like doing that awesome where we don't need the assistant anymore, or what happened with that?
It's the deputy.
Hold on, I got the answer, I'm just looking for the line. Oh, here we go.
It's right above the footnote 1.
Right above. Why am I not, oh, yeah, I got you. Okay. Yep, assistant building inspector. That, last year, we got rid of that in the budget, and we actually hired a building inspector. So it's just assistant building inspector implies that this is the assistant building commissioner. And that's not what this position is. It's a part-time position that does building inspections. So it's a local building inspector, and you'll see that the line building inspector, that's that position. Assistant building inspector is zeroed out. There's no money in there.
So is that a contracted position?
No, it's actually an employee, part-time employee.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Diane, you have a question?
I do. I'm just going to ask you again, just like the other page, we have, and it could be the same thing as the assistant building inspector. It says secretary, actual expenditures for 6, and nothing else on that line. Is that included in somewhere else, or is it someone that's been kind of
That's the same answer as
together?
as the other page where the secretary is now renamed meeting wages, directly below it.
Right.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
The line right below secretary, it says meeting wages.
Okay,
So that was renamed just to reflect more what the position was doing.
Okay, so that 6,000, et cetera, goes into that next line?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Diane. Joel?
You may not be able to answer this, Mark. Do you have any idea of the expected revenue from inspection fees that you're anticipating for the next fiscal year?
I can get that for you. For throughout the rest of
I
this.
don't need the exact number. Do you have a ballpark? Is it like 80 million or?
Are you talking about inspections and building
Fees.
permit revenue,
Yeah,
both
yeah.
together? It's already higher than it's already been. It's probably going to be around 1.5 million.
I'm sorry, what?
1.5 million?
1.5 million?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Ballpark,
No, that's fine,
plus or
that's
minus.
fine. I just went.
Thank you.
Yep.
Carolyn?
Hi, through you, Mr. Chair. When you say meeting wages, what meetings are you talking about? The zoning board?
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or comments from the committee on the building and zoning, building code enforcement portion of the Article 14 General Fund operating budget? I have one question here. Your footnote mentions administrative building department is promoted. Is the program administrative for building department position being removed?
Yes.
Thank you. That's my only question. Any questions or comments from the public on the building and code enforcement portion of the Article 14 General Fund operating budget? Cynthia, please identify yourself for the record.
I do remember who I am. Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street. I think that this department's going to be busy again. We must be doing something right. Kohl's just closed, and there's already a new business that's going to go in. They're going to require either demolition or major reconstruction because it's going into a kind of warehouse industrial thing. And then we have the huge project up in North Stoughton. If developers come to town and they go to the various departments and all they get is a hassle and grief, they can go anywhere. So this department and their associated departments must be doing something right, that instead of having a vacant building for years, within months, it's going to be something else. And because no children are going to live there, as far as I know, it's a crane company, the tax dollars we get and the water and sewer dollars we get, it's gravy. It's not going to go right into some other department. So I think they deserve a lot of credit for that.
Well, thank you very much for that. Any other questions, comments from the public? Building and code enforcement portion of, yes, Chet?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have clarification. The meeting wages, is that for the recording secretary for the zoning? That's what it is, right? I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chet. Any other questions, comments from the public on the building and code enforcement portion of Article 14 General Fund Operating Budget? Hearing none. Next item, we have Board of Health. You already presented this in your summary there, Mr. Tisdale. We have any questions from the committee? Board of Health, page 58. 58.
There's no change. This is a 2.1% increase. There's really no big changes here.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Board of Health portion of the Article 14 General Fund Operating Budget? Page 58. Okay. Hearing none. Questions or comments from the public? Board of Health budget. Part of General Fund Operating Budget, Article 14. Okay. Let's go to the next portion here. We have the Planning Department. I know you mentioned that in your opening summary, Mr. Tisdale.
Yep.
Planning is on page,
Page
31?
31.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, this is again a 2.1% increase for the total budget. There's no real changes here.
Any questions from the committee? Planning Department, Planning Board, any of that? Any questions for planning from the committee? Lisa? Page 31.
I just want to know, what do we generally hire consultants fees for here? I noticed we do a lot of consulting here in Stoughton.
Yeah, it's for, usually you hire a consultant. It's a good question. You hire a consultant who's an expert in a particular area that you aren't. You know, for Craig and I, in our engineering department, we have a consultant that does, testing, environmental testing. We're engineers, but we're not experts at that. We're good at it, but we're not going to be the experts, and you want the best people doing it. For this particular department, you'll get zoning experts, people who are in the field of rewriting subdivision regulations like we are right now. The subdivision regulations are from like the 1980s. They look like they're typewriter type style. There's a lot of regulations that get rolled into these documents, so you need experts that are in the field that are up to date on those types of regulations. Is there anything else I'm missing, Craig? Pretty much zoning and consultants and things of that nature. Yeah. Oh, landscape design type stuff. So say there's a landscape project, and you need a landscape architect to design something for a little pocket park or something like that, or a little sitting area. Whatever the project is, you would hire a landscape architect.
Through you, Vaughn. Isn't that typically the person coming before the planning board that would pay those fees? That's what I'm just trying to understand.
These would be for town projects, for town-initiated projects. Projects like you're talking, like private development projects.
Yes.
They're required to pay their consultants to do that work.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Any other questions from the committee on the planning portion of the General Fund Operating Budget, Article 14? Hearing none. Move to the next item here. Thank you very much, Mr. Tisdale, Mr. Horsfall. Moderator is the next budget. On page 7. I think it's page 7.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. Good evening,
Hello,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman
Moderator.
and the members of the Finance Committee. My name is Bob Mullen. I'm here for the town moderator's budget.
Okay. Do we have any questions from the committee? For the moderator budget, page 7?
Can I just take a moment just to...
Oh, you can present all you want.
Oh, thank you. Obviously, as we all know, the moderator's budget is used to fund the requirements of the town charter and the state law in preparation for the annual town meeting and all the special town meetings that we may have during the fiscal year. So mainly it's funding the advertisements in the Suburban Shopper, which is increasingly getting more and more expensive, the Patriot Ledger, and also I'm working with the town clerk's office. They're providing support for a secretary, and some of this money may go into that. This is sort of like a transitional year with the new town clerk. We'll see how it goes. I think it's working pretty well, so I'm not sure how much she needs out of my budget, but I told her that obviously any funding she needs to take out of my budget, take it out for the secretary as we need to prepare the minutes for every meeting that we do have, like the Rules Committee meetings and the other 3 standing committee meetings, IGR, which is Intergovernmental Relations, Municipal Operations, and Municipal Regulations. So we have to have minutes prepared on those. So I'm more than happy to answer any questions, and as you probably can see, I think this is one of the, if not the smallest department budget in the entire, I believe it's up to $140 million budget. So this, I figure if my numbers are right, this is like 0.002% of the total budget. I don't want to take up too much time on this significant budget, but I'm
We're only going to ask .002 questions.
Sure, more than happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much for that, Mr. Moderator. Do we have any, Heidi, you have a question?
I see there's no more contracted services, and I know that in the past at meetings, childcare has been provided through the YMCA. I believe in the past that has been a fee covered by the moderator. Is that service still available for families and parents who are going to attend town meeting?
Yeah, great question. Thank you, Heidi. Yes, for the annual town meeting, we do that. And my understanding is some of these funds can be moved anywhere within my budget. So as needed, we will fund that through the YMCA. They provide the contractors, if you want to use the term contractors, yes.
And how are you going to make families aware of that?
For the town meeting reps, I'll send out an email to the town meeting reps.
Okay, thank you.
And hopefully that'll be coming up soon, since the annual town meeting is coming up on May 5th. Great question, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Carolyn?
Hi, thank you. Hey, Bob. Is there any money in here that pays for people to take the minutes? I just might have missed where you said it is.
Yes, I'm working with the town clerk, Reggie.
What's in their budget right now?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. So whatever she needs to help fund part of her budget to provide for a secretary or someone to take the minutes,
All right, thank
I'll
you.
provide that.
All right, thank you.
If she needs to take it out of my budget, there's no problem.
And where would that money come from?
It will come out of my budget. If we have to set up a line item, we'll do that.
No.
But right now, I believe some of it's sort of like a transitional year with her, because I did have, under the prior town clerk, the previous assistant town clerk that was doing everything since she left. So we just started doing this between the town clerk's office and mine. So I'll have more information probably at the end of the fiscal year than right now.
Okay, no, that's fine. I just wasn't sure where it would come from, but you could figure out, you could adjust it within there.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Carolyn. Any other questions from the committee on the moderator budget? Page Dave?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Through you, Vaughn. Yeah, thank you very much for speaking on your budget. The advertising cost, you had an extra town meeting, and you have another one coming up. How are we doing in fiscal year '25 for your advertising budget to get through all these extra town meetings that we seem to have?
Well, I think there's enough money in there. I don't go to conferences that much anymore. I went to one conference, and I hasn't been taken out of this yet. Just submitted my cancel check. The deputy moderator wasn't able to attend that conference. And we don't attend that many conferences just to keep you know, I know it's taxpayers' funding, taxpayers' funds here, but, you know, only the ones that, there's conferences you can go to almost any time of the year. But I'm only going to the necessary ones, the conferences.
So those monies are freed up to be able to use toward the extra advertising?
Right.
You've had extra advertising, correct?
Yes, I think the half-page, I like to put a half-page ad for each standing committee ad that I put in for the suburban shop, and they're at $149 per half page, and the $79 for the quarter page. I like to do the half page, so because I know people have mentioned to me that they can't read the smaller print in some cases. So it is getting expensive, but there's enough money in here, I believe, to cover that. If I'm wrong, I'll just come back and ask for a transfer from this committee, but I'm pretty sure we have enough to cover.
All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much for that, Dave. Any other questions from the committee? The moderator budget, page 7, part of the Article 14 General Fund Operating Budget. Hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public on the moderator budget, Article 14 General Fund Operating Budget? Hearing none. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and all the members of the Finance Committee. I appreciate all the time you put in. I know there's long hours here for the Finance Committee, and also during town meeting. We appreciate your, on behalf of the town, I definitely appreciate your efforts and time and your commitment. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks again. Have a wonderful evening. Next item, we have the Finance Committee budget, which is on page 11. And page 11. The only change in here is the reserve fund fuel has been zeroed out, and the dollars were added to the reserve fund overall. So the total adds up to $400,000 because it was $350 and $50. It's all been moved into one line. And that's about it. That's about the only change. So, any questions or comments? Any questions? Yes, Carolyn.
What are the temporary wages?
Those are for the recording secretary.
That.
Did they take the minutes?
Okay.
Any other questions? Lisa?
Hi. How much was set aside for training? I know we were told there was going to be a big training for the Finance Committee members. We had one on November 2nd.
Correct. There's an annual, the ATFC meeting in the fall was in Sharon, yes.
Right, and then there was supposed to be a big one where we'd meet fellow Finance Committee members in Boston, I believe it was. Was it Seaport, I believe?
That's not a Finance Committee meeting. You're referring to the MMA meeting. It's
Yes.
it's not a Finance Committee training session.
But
Yeah.
There are no funds set aside for it.
It's an event that we've always gone to every year for years.
We've not
And
gone to
it's
it every
the
year, Dave,
MMA,
but-
we stopped around COVID time. Around COVID, it stopped. But traditionally, we've gone every year. We've usually taken a head count. There's usually about 6 people who go, and we've always found the money to do it.
But don't they learn about other towns and what other towns are
Yes, you
doing
do.
in terms of policy and what
Very
other
similar,
finance?
very similar to what you saw at the ATFC would happen in breakout rooms. Different towns would demonstrate what they've done in their towns.
I think we're doing.
And the DL, what's even more significant is the things that are coming around that may impact your town. So they talk about like the headwinds of things that could impact you financially. Other things that you learn from that kind of an event is who's your DLS people. They have a booth and they talk to you about things that you don't understand. You want to get a deeper understanding, or maybe they'll come in and give you consultation on how you can fix some of the problems you have in your town. Those are some of the things you missed because we didn't have the opportunity to fund the entire Finance Committee to be able to go to the MMA event.
That's correct. There's no funding to go, as you can see. The in-service training line, $1,500. If you look at all the 24 year-to-date actuals, you'd see that they add up to pretty much more than we had in the budget. So if the Finance Committee going forward would like to go to the MMA, those funds would have to be put in the budget. There's not enough money there now to send 16 or 17 members to an MMA conference in Boston at $300 apiece.
Well,
which
maybe
is why I said when this was going on that the funds are not there to do it. The Sharon thing, which is very specific for finance committees, was the option to go to for several reasons. One is it's very focused for finance committee members. It's not as broad-based, and the funding was available to do that. So.
I just think maybe we could take turns. If we have new finance committee members, of which I still consider myself one, we would want, if our job is to make recommendations to town meeting, we should be as fully informed as we can.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Suggestion.
Any other questions or comments from the committee?
Yeah. Another way to question this kind of thing is, well, what were some of the costs that might have affected our ability to go? Things like extra town meetings that were brought in.
Well, actually, Dave,
So-
if you actually look at this, you'd find out printing and stationery in FY24 actuals. You'll see that a lot of this money spent on printing and stationery, things like that.
With extra town meetings that had to be funded through our department called Finance Committee. And you're right, and I think the way in which it was envisioned by me personally was that we could have taken a head count, because we've never seen more than 5 or 6 people go. Then the cost would have been much more reasonable than saying, oh, let's just make sure we first have $4,000 for all 16 of us to go at the same time. But we wouldn't have, because we never have that.
Thank you very much, Dave. Any other questions from the committee on the Finance Committee budget, page 11? Arnie.
This is just a question. I just don't know where the reserve funds go. Could you just educate me on that?
Yeah, the reserve fund is in case of some unforeseen emergency, I guess might be one way to put it. And say something were to it happened a couple years ago. I'm just giving an example, Dave. I'm giving an example, Dave. But it happens every now and then. Some unforeseen incident occurs where they don't have the money in the budget. They need some sort of a quick resolution to it. So they come to the Finance Committee, and they look for a vote from the Finance Committee to transfer money from the Finance Committee reserve to whatever the budget that needs that. Happened a couple years ago for fuel, happened recently for a battery. It happens here and there. We've actually voted on this pretty recently. But it's unforeseen emergencies, I guess, is one way to put it.
Thank you very much. I just guess I wanted to know what the limits were on it. So it's basically a universal fund. For instance, IT needed it for that battery, which I was
Yes.
there for.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and by removing it from the fuel to the general reserve, it would leave the full $400,000 available, rather than having 50 of it locked into fuel.
Yeah, I'd like to add to.
Thank you very much for the question,
To
Arnie.
add
Dave,
to it,
Dave,
I'd like to
Dave,
just
Dave,
add to it.
Then
Why
let
is
me recognize you first.
Okay, can I
Thank
be
you.
recognized?
I'm still thanking Arnie. Can you let me finish thanking Arnie?
Thank you, Arnie.
Thank you very much for the question, Arnie. Dave, do you have something to add to this?
The two areas that are unique that FinCom does as a function is to move money between departments. We have the ability to do that where a department can't. They have to stay contained within their department. They can move money around inside their department, but not in between departments. The other area is if unforeseen, as Vaughn said, this reserve fund is covering that. Another interesting question might be for the finance director, which you could certainly ask when she's here, is how does this contribute to our undesignated funds as showing liquidity in our budget towards any debt service we might bring on? So it'd be a relevant question for that, because it is funds that are not being appropriated. They're just sitting in a reserve.
All right, thank you for that, Dave. Carolyn, you have a question on this?
I do. How much have we spent in legal fees this year? Does anyone know? There's
I
a
would
line
have
item
to
for it.
double. I would have legal
It
fees.
says consulting fees or legal.
I will get that number. I don't know that we've spent anything recently, but I'll get a confirmation on that. I would have to get a confirmation on that. Yeah, I mean, it's rare that we run up any legal fees, though.
Okay, but that's just in
I'll
case
get an
we
answer.
get a
I'll get an
question.
answer to
Thank
the
you.
question.
I'm just curious what types of legal fees we would get.
All right, thank you for
Yeah,
the question.
I could answer that.
Do we-
We've had budget situations in which we needed guidance, and we've had town council come here
Thank you.
and spend time with us at Finance Committee.
Thank you very much for the question, Carolyn. Any other questions from the committee? On the Finance Committee budget, page 11 of the General Fund Operating Budget, Article 14. Hearing none, any questions or comments from the public on the Finance Committee budget, part of the General Fund Operating Budget, Article 14? Hearing none, we will, we will go to the next part of the agenda here, which is annual town meeting articles. Article 31, open space and recreation plan update, $70,000.
I have a question.
Yes, Heidi.
Could we just put a reminder out to have everybody's phone on silent or vibrate regardless of where you're in this room?
I can do that. Thank you, Heidi. I mentioned it at the beginning of every meeting, but I will mention it again. I'm not saying anything specifically. I'm putting a general reminder out to everyone who's here or even at home, possibly. If you could put your phone on silent. It's getting late. Some of the children might be sleeping, so even if you're at home, you might want to do that. But for people here, too, if everyone could please put your phone on silent, that would be great. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is Article 31, Open Space Recreation Plan Update, $70,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll take this on behalf of the Open Space Committee. The chair could not make it tonight, had another commitment, and another member, Jerry, is actually in a Conservation Commission meeting tonight. I believe this is pretty and simple in nature. Everybody knows we have an open space plan. It has expired. These things get approved with the state. Oh, here he is right now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, make sure you speak into the microphone. Green light.
All right, I apologize. Sorry about that. All right, so we have an open space plan currently. It's expired. They get approved by the state. They're good for 7 years. Our existing open space plan needs to get updated, and that's what this article is. The cost is associated with a quote we got from a consultant that does this kind of work. It's an update to our existing open space plan. Essentially, projects like those trail grants that we get, if we don't have an open space plan that's approved by the state, we're not eligible for those grants. That's the key to these open space plans. So the trail grants, the things like some of the grants that we get through Glen Echo for different grants, open space areas, things of that nature. If they're not in the plan, you're not eligible to. If the plan's expired, you're not eligible to apply for those grants. And then simple, that's what it is. These plans, they inventory all your open space, Bird Street, Glen Echoes, things like that. There's an existing conditions survey. They look at everything that's there. If there's something from the old plan was completed, it comes off. If there's a new plan, they add things. If there's a new trail we want to add, we would add it into the plan. And the Open Space Committee is the group that manages this project. So if you have any questions, I hope I can answer them for you.
Carolyn, you have a question on this?
I do. What type of a consultant do you hire to do such a plan?
That's a good question. Horsley and Witten is a type of consultant you would hire for this. They're I'm trying to think of the name for them. They're actually an engineering firm, if you can believe it, but they have different divisions within their firm that deal with items like this. And the quote you have, I believe, is from Horsley and Witten. Yep.
Diane, you have a question on this?
I do, thank you, Mr. Chairman. How much in grants do you expect to get, on an average, on a yearly basis? You said this was a 7-year turnaround, but...
Yeah, these plans are good for 7 years. And every year, different grants come up, so it's tough to tell what kind of grants, but I know the...
So is this all grants or just certain ones that are for open space?
This is for certain grants, things
Certain
to do with
grants.
trails and things of that nature.
So do you know how many grants we got last year or the year before?
Well, I mean, recently, I think 2 town meetings ago, it might be 3, we had the grant project for the Bird Street with the parking lot and the trail upgrades and things of that nature. I can't think of another one off the top of my head right now.
Okay, and how much was that grant for? Do you know?
60,000, something in that
Okay,
range.
so this is pretty much paying for itself.
It can, yeah, these grants come up quite often.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Joel, you have a question?
Yes, I read the proposal from your engineer, and at the end where it talks about fees, it said a range of fees with a maximum of $53,000. The appropriation is asking for $70,000. Could I ask what the difference is?
I mean, quite frankly, I think they're kind of rounding up. It's a rounding.
You rounded up
Yeah.
from 53 to 70?
What we're going to do is we're going to go out and get additional quotes. And again, I'm speaking for the Open Space Committee. And I don't
I'm
wanna-
sorry, Mark, you're going to have to speak.
Is it not working?
No, you just have to get a little closer.
The thing's almost in my mouth right now. All right. The committee rounded up to be safe. They got a quote to appease what your policy is to get you a quote. When this gets approved through town meeting, as you're familiar with, Joel, we'll go get 3 quotes. And you don't necessarily have to pick the lowest quote. You got to pick the most qualified person.
Familiar with the process,
So
yes.
you know how that works. So it may not be 53,000. It could be 60 plus or whatever the number is. So they built a little bit of fluff. And that's by design due to the process, because we haven't gone out for quotes. We got 1 quote. Also, they are working with the Old Colony Planning Council on a partial grant for this, so we may not have to use all the funds. Old Colony may help out with this project and pay for about half of it, but we haven't got that grant yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
You're very welcome. Any other questions from the committee on Article 31, Open Space and Recreation Plan, update $70,000? Hearing none. Questions or comments from the public on Article 31, Open Space and Recreation Plan update for $70,000? Hearing none, we will go to the next item on the agenda. Item 10, which is Article 32, Septic Betterment Program Funding, $400,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're very welcome.
This is an article that you've seen maybe every 3 or 4 years at town meeting for about $400,000. I don't know if you're familiar with the program. It's not something it's essentially a loan program for people who have issues with septic systems. There's a low-interest loan program through the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust. We loan out the money and then we get reimbursed. In your budget, where you see the Title V receipts line in the budget, in the summary sheets that you see, that revenue comes into that line. So it's what comes in goes out. It's a easier program for people to apply for loans, and it's quicker than going to a bank or things like that. The Old Colony Planning Council actually manages this for us. It's a 5% loan. I believe it's for 20 years. It's eligible for people with septic system issues or sewer connection issues. So if you have a failing septic system and there's a sewer line in front of your house, you wouldn't put a septic system back in. You have to connect to the sewer. So this would pay for your sewer service connection to that main line, things of that nature. So again, it's been I got a note here. We've been doing this since 2012.
All right, thank you very much for that. Questions from the committee, Article 32. Diane.
Through you, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there I'm trying to put it so it doesn't sound awful. Are these for low-income people, or just anybody in town can come?
No, anybody can apply for
Anybody?
this. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. Carolyn?
Hi, through you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure I understood. So in the budget where we see the Title V receipts, that's the people paying back the loan from this program?
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you for that. Dave, you have a question?
I do, thank you. Through you, Vaughn. Thank you for the presentation on this one. Just a simple question. How much participation have you been getting? Obviously, there's a big cost with the septic over to sewer, obviously, but can you talk about that?
I had a feeling you might ask that question. 79 people have applied to this since its inception. since we started being involved with the program.
That goes back to the date you said earlier?
Yeah.
Oh, so what, all right, how about if I ask a shorter term, like in the last year, if that's easy to, can you guess what the?
10, 12 in that range, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for that question, Dave. Heidi, you have a question?
Yeah, so is that 79 applicants or 79 who have been approved? Or is that the
79 who
same?
have been approved, yeah. If you go right on the Old Colony website, I wish, I mean, they actually manage the program, there's a chart there, and they update it. So right now it's 79.
Okay, thank you.
Carolyn?
Yes, then how much is that, like, the average loan through that program?
If you're replacing a septic system, obviously it's going to be a little higher than a sewer connection. So if you're doing a septic system, and that's a loaded question, if you have just a generic septic system, no pumps, no retaining walls, nothing extravagant, you're probably looking at around 20, 25,000 in that range. A sewer connection is going to be less. A sewer connection only involves a pipe, not constructing a whole septic system. That's probably going to be in the $10,000 to $15,000 range.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, any other, Lisa, you have a question on this? Article 32.
Hi, just real quick, how would a resident know that this was even available to them?
They come, usually anybody who has issues with septic systems, they come to the Board of Health, and right away we notify them at the front desk about the program.
I'm just asking because the connection from the street to my, I don't know what it's called, needed to be done, and I never knew this existed.
Yeah. So anytime you pull a permit for like a sewer connection or a septic system, that's the point in time where you have to physically come to our department to pull that permit, and we educate people on this program when they come, as an option. You don't have to do it, but.
So the contractor would typically go and get the permit, right? Let's hope mine did.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify one thing, that it's not for repair of an existing sewer connection. So you have to have a failing septic that needs to connect to the sewer. So if you have a problem with your sewer line, this doesn't cover it.
That answers the question. Thank you.
That's why I got him. He's my wing person.
Thank you for the question, Lisa. Any other questions from the committee on Article 32, the Septic Betterment Program funding, $400,000? Okay, hearing none. Any questions or comments from the public? Article 32, Septic Betterment Program funding, $400,000. Hearing none, we will move to the next item on the agenda, which is item 11, Article 33, Town Hall Traffic, Parking, Pocket Park, Landscape Improvements, $1.2 million.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very soon I'll hand this over to Craig. Craig has been the point person on this project and has more detail than I, but generally speaking, to summarize, 2 town meetings ago, 2023 town meeting overwhelmingly approved an article to look at the traffic circulation, the landscaping, ADA improvements around Town Hall. We've completed that analysis, and that what we're discussing tonight is the results of that design of what town meeting funded. In a nutshell, essentially, you come to Town Hall, traffic circulation's a problem. ADA around Town Hall is a problem. There's lacks accessible routes all around Town Hall. There's no sidewalks, things of that nature. The parking spaces around the corner and the front. Good luck trying to get the 5 cars parked there. Although it is striped for 5 parking spaces, it's just you might get 3 to 4 if you're lucky. So we're just trying to improve all that. ADA improvements, increasing public parking spaces was the main goal of this. I think at town meeting we're looking to get maybe 5. I believe in the backup material from 2023 it says that. We've pretty much doubled that with 9 public parking spaces. And I don't want to take the thunder away from Craig. He's worked hard and long on this project with our consultant. And by the way, like a classic example, sometimes that line you were talking about could be used for things like this, an expert who deals with this kind of thing. But I'll hand over the details to Craig to present to this committee, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
That's absolutely fine.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Do you all have a copy of the PowerPoint in front of you? Okay.
Yes, it was emailed out to the committee.
Excellent, yeah. Normally I'd have it up on the screen, so this is a little different than what I'm used to. But as Mark said, that this was a project that was approved by town meeting in the annual town meeting 23. We've been working with our design consultant, GPI, who has landscape architecture expertise and helped us design the project. The second page of the PowerPoint shows an image of Town Hall from 1881, around the time when it was originally constructed. And you can see it's a main focal point in the center of town. A lot has changed around there. There's some buildings missing and so forth. You can see that the Porter Street side of the building had a porte cochere entrance and a sort of a circular driveway. But it was, built as a very prominent building in the center of town. I think it still stands as that today. As you flip through the sides, you'll see we have some street views. The first one is an image looking south on Pearl Street, where you can see where the existing sidewalks are and landscaped areas and the parking spaces adjacent to the building. Next slide is an image from the intersection of Pearl, Porter, and Washington Street. So sort of just looking at the corner of the property where you can see the existing entrance at that point there. Some of the shrubs are pretty overgrown. There's actually a memorial stone that's behind those burning bushes. And it's really obscured from the public view. So, it's just not serving the function it was initially planned for. The next slide is on Porter Street, looking northeast. So we're looking back at the side of the building where we have the two exits out onto Porter Street. There's the retaining wall separating the upper level parking area and then the lower level, which has the second exit out onto Porter Street. The project, we really wanted to, honor what was existing around Town Hall, so there's a number of assets that we really wanted to keep track of. The Memorial Bell, as everybody knows, that's out on Pearl Street. The flagpole, obviously. So this slide also points out some other amenities. We have the accessible entrance in the front of the building with the accessible ramp, and then the pedestrian entrance at the corner, and the memorial stone that I had mentioned before. The existing site has a whole bunch of deficiencies that we're looking to correct. So there's limited pedestrian connectivity and ADA accessibility. Around the site, it just really wasn't designed for today's standards for ADA access. It's not very appealing to the eye from street view, and the limited landscaping, no seating, and no bike racks. So what do we want to do? We wanted to improve the public parking. There's a big problem here we have a pretty decent parking lot in the back. The one in the front and along the sides is really sort of haphazard, unorganized, and tough to access for a lot of people. So we really wanted to fix that problem. We wanted to make Town Hall look a lot better. We think it's a great building, and the landscaping's really lacking, and just the efficiency of how the parking functions around the building just doesn't work well. And then we also wanted to enhance the front yard. Our new zoning code for the Stoughton Center District encourages or requires enhanced front yards for properties, so that new projects in town are required to provide some upscale landscaping and appearance for their front yards. We want to set the example here, set the tone, and follow our own rules. So the project has incorporated public seating. We have a few areas adjacent to the building and along Pearl Street and down at the corner where we've included benches for people to sit. There's no availability for that now. We try to provide a varied and visual appealing landscape palette using ornamental vegetation and other hardscape surfaces. So there's different brick pavers and different pavement treatments to help make the property look a lot better. Our overall design goals, we want to provide a safe pedestrian network. If you look at our proposed design, we have new walkways up against Town Hall. There's no pedestrian walkways adjacent to the building. We have a new access point from Pearl Street, which comes off the north corner. Right now, you have to cross the driveway, and then you get into our existing sidewalks. Then you have to cross over the parking areas to get to the building. We're eliminating all that and moving the sidewalks so that they're where they should be. The parking spaces are proposed to be up adjacent to the building so that there's less distance to walk for the accessible spaces and for just parking for public in general. I'll go on to the next slide. The next few slides will show an existing image of the corner of the building. So we'll start with the corner at Washington and Pearl. And as you can see in the proposed rendering there, we're adding the brick pavers. We have a message board, so there will be an electronic sign up there to engage with the community. There's benches, and the memorial stone is now relocated and much more visible to the public. The next slide kind of zooms into the corner of the building and its proposed rendering, where you can see the flagpole with some plantings around it, brick pavers to define the area. There's a raised crosswalk that comes in from the corner so that pedestrians have a safe pathway over to this area. And then there's a wall for bench seating and some bike racks. Moving on to the side on Pearl, on Pearl Street. You can see how the front of the building will look with a couple of benches, the concrete walkway, and then the parking set behind that. And then a view of our pocket park over on Pearl Street, where we've included a couple of benches on an inset area, and then there's the memorial bell. In this rendering, it's shown in a roof structure to make it a little more prominent. The next few slides are real important. I know I kind of went quick through the last ones, but this rendering shows how the one concept that we looked at in keeping the two access points out onto Porter Street. So pretty similar to what you see today, right? We have two driveways that come out in the same location. And that presents sort of some tricky maneuvering for drivers, and it makes it tough for pedestrians too. So now we've got two driveways to cross. We did look at an alternative that kept that because the way that the town hall is laid out, we have that high retaining wall, and there's some work to do to get rid of that condition there. But we thought it was worthwhile looking into, and I'm really glad that we did, because if you look at the next slide, you can see that if we remove that retaining wall, we can consolidate the exit drive down to one driveway, which does a couple of things. It shortens the pathway for pedestrians to cross there. It consolidates that exit drive to one driveway exiting at that point, and the oncoming traffic, there's less points of conflict. So the following slide just shows a plan view of what I was just talking about. So in the first concept, where we keep the two exit drives, we're able to gain 2 employee parking spaces in the rear. We're doing that by doing some restriping and pushing out the landscaping on the ends of the parking splines. So we're able to pick up 2 more spaces there. But we're also able to pick up 5 public parking spaces. And the public areas on this plan are around the Pearl Street and Porter Street side, and then down along the side of the building to the north. So with that concept plan, We gained 7 spaces. However, with removal of the wall, we still get the 2 spots in the back for employees, so we still keep those. But now we're able to get 7 spaces on site, and we're able to add 2 more on the street side. So we get a total of 9 public spaces. And that's quite a bit when you think about we're still looking at the same footprint that we're here today, and not buying any additional land, but just reconfiguring things. And we think making it safer, making it more beautiful, and then making it more efficient for people to use. The next slide is, how much does this cost? So their overall cost estimate is essentially $1.2 million. We have presented to the CPC with a funding request for $820,000 for this project. That would leave a remainder of $379,000. And we're hoping that we can pay that through free cash. However, we have also applied for a shared streets and spaces grant, which could yield $250,000. We're hopeful that we'll get that. We should hear, Pam McCarthy let me know that we should hear about that in the next couple of weeks. So, and I'll end there.
If I could just add two seconds, two more comments to this. There will be a public information. We've gone to the senior center. We presented this at the senior center. We've put the information online. We've been to the select board a couple times. We've been to your committee now. We're going to have an informational meeting in April on this and probably other town meeting topics. Sorry, I'm not close. I'm realizing I'm not close enough to the mic here. We really want this project. We want the community to feel good about this. We want you to own this project. You asked us at town meeting to design something. We're designing it. We've vetted it with a number of groups, and we want the entire town to be proud of this. It's not something we're in a position. We don't want to make anything political about this. We don't want to go to town meeting and have a negative conversation about this. If we're not proud about this, let's not do it. Life goes on in the town halls the way it is now, and it stays like this for a while. We're trying to do a good thing here. We want you to be proud of this. We are having $820,000 from CPC cash, which is a great thing. They have that now. It's a great opportunity to use that. It covers a vast majority of this, and there's a $250,000 grant we think we're going to get most of for this project, which leaves us with $180,000 that we can do to pay for this entire project from free cash. So to me, it's a great opportunity. It's good timing for something like this. But again, if it's not fully supported and the public doesn't want to do it, we go with you and we move on to other projects in town. And that's all I got to mention. So we'd be welcome to any questions if you have them.
Well, thank you very much for the presentation. Do we have any questions from the committee on Article 33, Town Hall traffic, parking, pocket park, landscape improvements? Heidi.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to say, so you're proposing the budget be $1.2 million, and you're saying with all of the funding that you could get, we could get this for less than $250,000 with my loose math.
Yeah, so CPC's already unanimously approved the $820,000, so that comes off the top. So now you're left with $380,000. We've applied for the grant, and we have a good intel that says we're going to get at least most of that $250,000, if not all of it, which leaves us the delta of the $180,000 I was talking
180,
about.
okay.
Yep.
All right. So then I just have a couple things on the design. Could we make sure we have electricity in the bell for Memorial Day and Veterans Day events so that we can hook up a speaker and a microphone?
I think we do. Right?
Yeah.
We currently have electricity proposed and underlighting for this project too.
Okay.
And some of the pedestrian walkways and things of that nature, and near the bell and near the building also.
The back of the building? Yeah, I don't like walking out the back of the building where the wall is. So that's my other request. That's on my list too.
What's that?
I'm going to refer to Craig on that detail.
For the lighting?
Yeah.
Yeah, there'll be lighting throughout.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Where the bell is right now, there is also flags and wreaths up year-round. On this rendition, it doesn't look like there's space for the wreaths. Have you guys considered where the wreaths and the flags would be going when we come around to Veterans Day and Memorial Day, so that we can continue to honor those whose wreaths are there?
Yeah, I think we have like some hardscape around that area, so it'd be kind of hard to, you push those into the ground, right? Typically, the wreaths and the flags or.
I don't know, I just enjoy them when I walk by and when I'm in
Yeah,
my car.
I think they put
And
them
when
into
I'm
the
at the
grass.
events.
So we'll think about that.
That's a detail we can certainly incorporate at any point in time.
There's some planting around the flagpole itself, so there is a planting area, so.
So, yeah, I don't know if it's special to anybody here or if it's somebody's family. But they've been around the bell, so, I mean, being around the flag would be good too, but I don't know, like, what the protocols are with that.
These comments are great, and we will certainly look into them and implement these comments on us. I don't know if it's funny or not, but to me, it was a little funny. We wanted to actually accentuate the bell a little bit because we thought the bell
Well,
was.
and I was also going to ask, like, does it need to be even elevated a little higher?
Oh, where I was going to go with this, Heidi, is we were going to move the bell to the corner of on the other side of where the message board is, and boy, that was not a good idea, I guess. People did not want to move the bell, so essentially it's moved a little bit from where it is now, but it's in the same general area as it is now. There's a lot around why that bell's there, and I didn't know why until I heard a few people who were very vocal about it. So
Which is why I'm asking about the wreaths, because I don't know, like, what the special, I mean, I know they're special and they're symbolic, but I don't know the details.
We will work out the details and definitely incorporate that aspect to this.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have any other questions from the committee? Chet, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, the wreath is put up Veterans Day and Memorial Day. That's on the stand, that be in front of the bell. That's typical that we do every year. As far as the flags are not on the concrete. They're not in a permanent holder. They are placed into the grass around the bell area. So that will be part of the Memorial Day, Veterans Day. The flags are replaced every year because I do it along with the veterans person. So I hope that clarifies that part. The only question I have that people have spoke to me about, bell not being moved, about the benches in front of Town Hall. They're concerned about snow and ice coming off, and they're not quite sure how far away they are from the building. So if people are sitting there, which probably not in the wintertime, but it's possible, that the ice and the snow might come down. If there's going to be like a little barrier up there, like, because it's a slate roof. And most slate roofs have some sort of barrier to hold the snow back. So is that part of the plan also?
Yeah, there was a couple people that mentioned that, and that used to be an issue before we had the new, well, it's not new anymore, I guess. I've been here for 14 years, but they've put in rails up there for the snow. So those are up there now. Yeah, they used to not be there whenever we did this project about 10 years ago.
I usually don't look at the roof. So,
No, I
but
didn't either until
I don't
that question got asked.
I don't think other people do either, but they're just concerned about the benches in front being too close to the eave of the roof, that's all.
There's other temporary measures we could implement
Okay,
during
thank you.
certain times of the year.
Other than that, I love it.
Well, thank you very much, Chet. Carolyn, you had a question?
Sorry. Hi. Yes, first of all, I also really like the project, and I like the getting rid of the two exits. My question is about the park on the corner where there's like the ramp and the benches and the light.
Yeah.
Does that ramp go all the way up, or are there stairs there?
Yeah, it's a ramp all the way through.
Right, yeah, because all right, that's why, because it wasn't sure in the rendering, but that's designed to be a ramp the whole way up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Joel, you have a question?
Yes, I do. Mark, I need you to put on your assistant town manager hat for this one, please. This is an article for 1.2 million. In that 1.2 million, I'm led to believe it would also include within that 1.2 million, $820,000 from CPC and a potential $250,000 from shared streets. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so just to be sure, if we approve this article for 1.2 million, it's not 1.2 million plus 820,000 plus 250,000. Is that correct?
There's no more money other than 1.2 million. What's presented?
It's just 1.2 million and that's
1.2
it?
million, correct.
Okay. Make sure that goes in the minutes.
All right, thank you for that, Joel. Any other questions from the committee? Article 33, Dave?
Thank you, Vaughn, through you. Thank you for the presentation. I had a little trouble with the math myself. To get to the 1.2, I looked at the 820, and I added, I think what you said was 250 that you feel confident of getting through the grant program. So that gets me to 1,070,000. That would mean you'd have 130,000 from free cash that you'd need? Because I heard you say 180, I thought. Was it one, is the number different, like that you really only felt good about 200,000?
You're correct, Dave.
And that's why it's 180?
130,000.
No, 180 from free cash.
It's not, it's 130.
Yeah, my bad. I'm an engineer, I don't know how to do math that well.
No, no. No, we're going to get there together with this, Mark. My comment about it, you know, I don't mind improvements, you know, with things like this in general. I think sometimes when you're looking at a project, I just could picture you guys looking at all the great things you can graphically show up on a design and say, how do we do this, and then figure it out. One of the things was I don't know how you level off the ground because it seems so much higher than the lower driveway. I don't know how you get on Porter Street from, it looks like from the aerial view like it's flat, but I'm sure it's not flat.
It's not.
So I don't know how you magically do that, but the other comment, I'll just finish with another comment, which you could feel free to say what you feel is necessary, is it seems a little bit too busy is where I was going with that, because I don't like the idea of a sign. I think when you look at this graphic, you're not really looking at like how congested it really is, because the cars and the buildings are all very tight in there. And when you're driving by, the last thing you need is like all this busy stuff going on with a sign and all the changes you got going on. I'm more interested in more of a simple, open area that is more pleasant on the eyes than having a lot of clutter there because of the way the traffic is. You know, a sign, I mean, I don't even understand why we need a sign, to be quite honest. But, so the two aspects were the driveway looking like it's flat, and the other is why it has to be so busy.
Yeah, we had asked the same question of our design consultant, like, you sure these grades work? And he put together a preliminary grading plan for this, and we're confident that it can be done, so.
Thank you very much for that. Elliot?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Forgive me if I don't have the presentation and it wasn't up here, so there's an abandoned house there on Porter Street. If that gets removed one way or the other, how is that going to affect these plans?
We've designed this so that we could have a seamless transition if we ever wanted to use that piece of property for anything. Or if that piece of property got developed and needed access into our building and we allowed that, we could incorporate that, if that's what you're asking.
I couldn't hear it because of the microphone.
Boy, I should be better at this. I keep on moving my mouth away from that. We've designed our project to plan for the future. If we ever did acquire that piece of property, we could transition right into that piece of property, say it was used for a parking lot, because that's what's been talked about. Let's say we don't do that. Somebody develops that piece of property. They have a legal right with access. There's an easement that they can come into our parking lot to access. That's legally there. This will also work with that. So it goes both ways.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elliot. Joel?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you, could you please provide to this committee a breakdown on how you got to the 1.2 million, the design costs, the construction costs, what contingencies, if you have to buy any land, FF&E, whatever it is, so that we can see how you got to the number of 1.2 million? I don't need it right now, but it would be nice to have that before we vote on it.
We have that available, and we'll get it right over to you.
If you could send it to the
But it does
chairman.
not incorporate any buying of land.
Yeah, if you send it to the chairman, I'm sure he can distribute it. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Any questions? Any other questions? Lisa, you have a question too, right? Diane, you want to go next? Okay, Diane.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was concerned about the slope too, but I think you kind of answered that question. If I went out there now and drove off the side, it would not be so great. Trust me, when you park in that spot too, you think about it. I like the whole presentation. I like the whole park. I want a bigger sign. I want a bigger sign. I went by the sign in Avon on Harrison Boulevard that they have the two. You can read them. You don't have to, and you won't have to stop and slam on your brakes and try and read what's on the sign. I love the other two signs. I love the one at the Stoughton Waterworks. I love the one at the DPW. I wish they would make the fonts a little bigger so you could actually, see a lot of that stuff. But just my own personal. But I really like this project. I know Mark's talked about it for a long time, and I'm very happy with it. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. Lisa, you have a question on this?
It's more of a comment. I'm just, overall, what comes to mind is, how did we end up with what we have now, with the circular drive, and why are taxpayers redesigning something? I just feel like in town here, we're attempting to spend taxpayer dollars to do something that's not absolutely necessary, while at the same time asking taxpayers to do debt exclusion on whatever projects they are coming up. I'm just like, and that goes back, and I know you're not going to like it, Vaughn, but it goes back to having an overall policy in place and roadmap as to where we're going. I know people can say, some of this is covered by CPC, but CPC is still taxpayer money. And it's just the redesigning and all the other projects that go into not only making up a budget, but also all capital projects. And we never have that discussion. We just have projects, whatever they are, thrown in front of finance committee and in front of town committee and say, here, let's just spend money. And it's really upsetting not only to me, but the taxpayers that speak to me. And I feel very comfortable talking about this on this project because I despise the way it's currently set up and would love this design. But for the love of God, where's the overall roadmap and money for it? We do a budget and go through the project because there's limited funds. And I would just like to have a respectful conversation of where and how we're spending and saving our money and how it gets into a budget and capital projects. Thank you
very much for that, Lisa. Any other questions from the committee on Article 33, Town Hall Traffic? Dave?
Yeah, I just want to interject on a comment, just to make sure there's no misconceptions about what we do on the full 1.2 million of this. It's easy to just kind of say, well, CPC already approved, but they don't approve anything. They make recommendations just like we do. Town meeting will be approving the whole amount, because just like the previous speaker said, it is our taxpayers' money that we will be appropriating. So you can't really, it is a unique thing where the taxpayers voted to add that tax to their bill for their property tax. It was a voluntary tax that's permanent. It stays there until somebody takes it away. But it is a normal appropriation. It's just a different pool of funding that yet you vote on.
All right, thank you for that. Any other questions from the committee? Article 33, Town Hall Traffic, Parking, Pocket Park, and Landscape Improvements. No other questions from the committee, huh? I have one question. If this is approved by CPC or has been approved, is there a reason why it's not on the warrant for CPC now?
Yeah, because it's a combination article. We're partnering with them, the town's sponsoring the article, but we are getting funding from them. Instead of having an article for CPC for $820,000 and then an article through the town for another $380,000, we combined it and it's a town-sponsored article with
Okay,
CPC.
so later on, this CPC will speak to this at town meeting?
Yes.
All right,
yes.
thank you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, any questions or comments from the public on Article 33, Town Hall traffic, parking, pocket parking, and landscape improvements, $1.2 million? Cynthia, please identify yourself for the record.
Cynthia Walsh, 1096 Park Street, and I've expressed some of my concerns about this to the engineers, so I don't have to repeat everything. But one point I'd like to make is this building is used extensively in the evening, and we need adequate lighting at the back and at the front of the building. People leave here and they go into the pitch dark, or I go out the front and I'm trying to get into a vehicle to get home, and it's just, I mean, there's 2 lamps, that's about it, and then there's a light on the flag. So we have to recognize that it isn't just a daytime use, it's a late time use, and make sure there's adequate lighting. I know somewhere I've got a copy of this because I've been to the meetings, but which way does this sign display face? Does it face Pearl Street or?
The way it's oriented on the plan now, it's facing directly towards the corner.
Okay. Well, I really think it should face toward the people waiting at that light. If you've ever waited at the light on Pearl Street, you could read War and Peace while you're waiting. So if we want to provide information and give people adequate time to read the information, if it was facing the folks that are waiting at that light on Pearl Street, I think we would get that result. The other thing is, I was amazed that there's something on the roof to keep the snow off the ramp, because that ain't working. When I came in the other day, the ice from the roof had fallen on the ramp. We don't have a daytime custodian here anymore. And the nighttime folks don't come in until, I don't know, 9 or 10 at night. So I had the joy of using a ramp, which I appreciate, but doing my Nancy Kerrigan act, trying to get up a ramp that had ice from the roof on it. It was obviously ice that had fallen. It wasn't ice that had formed. So I think whatever you do, you take that into consideration. I'm not opposed to the project. I realize people come here in their cars, and most of them are coming to pay money to the town, so providing them with accessibility and decent parking is important, whether I drive or not. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Any other questions, comments from the public on Article 33, Town Hall traffic, parking, pocket parking, landscape improvements, $1.2 million? Hearing none, go to the next item on the agenda, looking for a motion to continue the public. Okay.
I'd like to move that we continue the public hearings to Wednesday, March 5th, 7 o'clock at Stoughton Town Hall.
Thank you very much. And Carolyn's a second, motion a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn. Thank you.
Okay, Diane's a second on that. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. This meeting is adjourned. I'd like to thank the public for watching. Have a wonderful evening.